Welcome back to another episode of the Geno Show podcast. Today, our guest is Randall Pink, and today is the Marine's birthday.
It is, yes.
Randall, you're a Marine.
I am.
Okay, and this episode will go live on actually Veterans Day because it's currently almost 7 o'clock p.m. here in Ohio. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit your background.
Sure, absolutely. So obviously I'm from Ohio. I was born in Columbus in 1988. I'm 37. I just turned 37 in October. Didn't live too long in Columbus, as far as I know. From what I can remember, my dad's family's from Kentucky. My mom's family's all from Ohio, but my dad's family's sort of like divided up between Kentucky and Ohio. So shortly after I was born, I know that we moved to Kentucky, but then moved back. And up until like getting ready to start kindergarten, my mom didn't want me to start school in Columbus Public Schools. So they decided to go back to Kentucky, which is Tompkinsville, Kentucky. It's like deep south by the Cumberland Gap, like right by Tennessee. So I started kindergarten there up until third grade, and then moved back to Columbus and started third grade in Columbus in Westmount Elementary. Then moved to Valley View, then went to Westmore Middle School, and then my mom was pretty wise in her judgment for the Columbus Public Schools, because the violence and bullying was so bad in the middle school I went to that my mom actually yanked me out and put me in a private Christian school. So I did that until ninth grade, and then, when I kind of started discovering myself, I kind of was like, I kind of want to get away from this. And so I begged my mom to put me back in public school where all my friends were. So then my mom moved me back into public school, West High School, which I graduated in 2007. I did go to Ohio State, but I was not into this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just did 13 years of school. And I'm like, I want to be an adult. I want to get a job. I want to do fun stuff. And so I
Live your life pretty much.
Yeah, I got a serving job at the Pig Iron, and then Old Bag of Nails. And then after a few years of doing that, I just kind of was like, gosh, I can't, work in restaurants for the rest of my life. So I kind of was looking at the military, and I actually went and took the ASVAB for the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And a buddy of mine, a really good friend of mine growing up, he had went to Marine Corps boot camp, and his family reached out to me and was like, hey, we're getting ready to go to Parris Island to watch his graduation. Would you like to come? And I was like, absolutely, I'd love to go. So I went, and I got to watch a Marine Corps graduation, and I got to see how it transformed him, and I was like, I want that. I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
So I remember coming back to Columbus, walking straight into the recruiter's office the next day, and was like, I want to be a Marine. Where do I sign up? Joined the Marine Corps, did 4 years in the Marines, did a deployment to Afghanistan, came back, and now I got out in 2013. It's now 12 years, 13 years.
Something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it definitely was a while ago now, it seems. Especially today, like November 10th is the Marine Corps birthday, and they drill that into you as, so we consider ourselves to have 2 birthdays. So, yeah, today's always one of those days that takes me back to the Marines and all the fun adventures and things I did, and good times and bad times.
Well, a few of my cousins are Marines, so yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience. I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I really want to challenge myself. I want to go on an adventure and, really prove that I can, I'm a man and all that fun stuff. So I did it, and, it was hard. It was challenging, all the things.
The best things in life usually are hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then now today, I do for work essentially the same thing I did in the Marines.
What'd you do in the Marines?
I was a field wireman, a 0612 field wireman, and tactical switchboard operator. They had merged 2 MOSs, military occupational specialties, into one. So essentially running cable, programming switchboards, and things of that nature. But when I got out of the Marines, I started working for a company called Buckeye Datacom Solutions for a guy, and I've kind of worked off and on for him for the past 12 years, but he's who I work for now. And good guy, good friend of mine, takes good care of me.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Was it fun working comms in the Marines?
It's funny because we had this running joke the worst communicators sometimes can be in comm, because you would be out in the middle of the field and it would take forever to get you. People couldn't get radios working, or you couldn't get a signal to the bird or whatever it is. It was just, or lack of communication. Like the always this running joke that we would have to, like, before we go out on the field op, we would have to show up to the armory really early in the morning to get our rifles out before we could go to the field. And we would have to show up. It'd be like 15 minutes prior to the 15 minutes prior to the 15 minutes prior. And, you check out and, you got to do accountability where make sure everybody's there. And then it's like you're sitting there for 2 or 3 hours before you even actually load up onto the trucks and go out into the field. And even then it's like you go in sticks. So it's like the first stick goes and it waits 15 minutes and the second stick goes. So
all the Marines listening to this are probably like, oh, I know exactly what he's saying.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. But I mean, it just being in comm in general, it was very interesting. The Marine Corps is, no two Marines have the same experience. You have comm Marines, you have infantry Marines, you have the air wing, you have, and then we work really closely because Marine Corps doesn't have medics, so we borrow medics from the Navy, corpsmen. So we work a lot with corpsmen and the Navy as far as that goes, but. Yeah.
Did you make a lot of friends there in the Marines?
Absolutely. Some of the best friends I've ever had. And not
How
even
long
just
were you
friends.
in for?
Only 4 years.
4 years. That's still a long time. I mean,
It was, you look back and it's like 4 years comes and goes like that. But, if I could have, I would have, stayed in, but we can get to that. But as far as, I mean, there's still so many people I talk to on a regular basis. And even amongst those people, I'll, like, hey, do you talk? And they're like, no, not. I'm like, really? That's unfortunate. I try my best to, keep in touch with at least the people that meant something to me, or, that I was really close with, or like today, I see everybody else, posting their pictures, and it's like, happy birthday. What it is cool. And it is kind of that thing about being a Marine that kind of sets you apart from the other branches. It's not like, not to knock on any other branch or anybody for their service. Obviously everybody has their place and their roles, and it's one big machine, and every piece has its part. But a Marine is like, you become a Marine. It's so much more than a title. It's like, it's a becoming. It's like an evolution of your before and your after. I see so many more like Marine Corps flags, even like driving around in small town Ohio, or even in Columbus, you just see Marine Corps flags more than you see like Army flags, Navy flags. And it's just, it's a pride thing. Marines have it. And
it's more ingrained in you, and it's just a little more instilled in your system.
Well, and if you go through boot camp, you could understand why, especially because it's so crazy. Some of it, you're just like, I can't believe this is actually happening right now. It's like, I remember being like, this has got to be the closest thing to like legal prison. It's probably worse. Like so many times.
It was that bad?
I mean, I've never been to jail, so it's hard for me to say for sure. But I just remember thinking that, like, this is crazy. Like I never saw anybody. The most that ever happened to me, like one of them picked me up, like, and lifted me up and like screamed in my face and kind of threw me back against my rack. But I never like.
That's not much. Though.
No. Especially compared to. Earlier.
You didn't grow up with abusive parents at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
it's not that bad then.
No, I definitely got my ass beat if I deserved it, for sure. But no, I mean, my drill instructors never put their hands on anybody that I saw. They cussed a lot.
Yeah.
Have you seen Boots?
I don't know. I'm not a movie buff. Everybody always asks me this, and I'm like, I'm not. If it's movies, I don't know.
It's a series on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and it's based off of a novel called The Pink Marine. Okay. It's about a guy that went through, a gay guy that went in during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And
was that named after you? Your last name is Pink?
No, well, so actually that's not my real last name. That was kind of a
pseudonym.
My real last name is Horn, H-O-R-N. But Randall Pink came from, my first serving job was at the Pig Iron in Columbus on High Street, but it's now called the Iron Grill.
Okay.
But at the time, there was a girl there. Her name was Mary, and she was like this super hippie chick. And I remember working, and she just always called me Randall Pink for no reason. I never knew why. She would always tell me it was from this movie, Dazed and Confused. And I remember being in the Marines like some years later, and somebody else called me Randall Pink, and I was like, it must be, a thing. So I kind of over time just like slowly started changing like my social media name to Randall Pink, but like still, that's just my social media alias. But
Yeah,
I did find that kind of ironic that Boots comes out and it's after this novel called The Pink Brain, and then my online alias's last name is Pink. But I can say that I served for the first 2 years in the Marines under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and when I was deployed in Afghanistan is when it was repealed, and then I came out.
Came out as gay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we didn't establish that.
And most people watching this aren't going to know who you are or anything about you.
Not.
Which I got a little bit of your backstory when we chatted a little bit, when I was looking for podcast guests, and you hit me up, and I was like, tell me your story, and you kind of disclosed to me that, and then you said if you don't have a problem with that, and I was like, no, I don't think I do. I'm gay. So.
Right, but I thought I was a little familiar with your story, but I obviously I didn't want to insinuate because I had never spoken to you personally, so I wasn't 100% certain. But yeah, after Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, I came out on Facebook while I was deployed in Afghanistan, and my platoon was very receptive. Even like my platoon commander pulled me to the side and was like, hey, my brother-in-law's gay, I love him, and I'll never forget that conversation. He said, if anybody ever gives you shit, you let me know immediately and I'll take care of it. And that was how, because I don't think any of them really knew. I think most of them kind of thought I was like a prude, or just was like this I don't know, like this Christian kid that, was saving himself for marriage. I don't know what they thought.
How did your family take it, since you came out when you were there and it was online?
Well, actually, that kind of it's a complicated situation. So right before I left for boot camp, my mom found out, but I didn't tell her electively. I was kind of drug out, kicking and screaming. I can't even believe that we're going to talk about this, but whatever. I'm an open book. I don't really care. This was like, I'd already enlisted in the Marines. This was 2000, probably like summer of 2009. I remember it was like hot. It was nice outside. Oh man, this is embarrassing. I remember my mom like Spartan kicks my door open. It flies and hits the side of the wall. I feel bad. I'm going to tell this story. My poor mother, she's great now, but obviously
we all have stories like this.
At the time, and once you find out, you're going to be like, okay, maybe she didn't overreact, but she like Spartan kicks my door open and it flies up, and I'm like shoot straight up out of bed like a zombie rising out of a coffin. And she's like, you need to come downstairs right now and tell me what's on the computer. And I knew immediately. I was like, oh no. I was like, I left up some bad stuff on the computer, and she found it. And I went downstairs, and I already knew, and I'm like, how am I going to handle this? What am I going to say? So she's sitting on the couch, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, oh, this is a pop-up. She's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I'm like, oh, I'm busted. There's no getting out of this. And I turned to her, and I was like, Mom, why do you think I've never had a girlfriend? And she just lost it. She started crying hysterically. And, my brother came downstairs in his underwear and was like, Mom, are you serious? I've known for years.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that was my mom's reaction too,
Yeah. I mean, my mom and dad, my dad definitely was much more biblical Christian than my mom. My mom's never really been super religious, but my upbringing was very conservative. So I knew immediately once I started kind of discovering that I was not a child, I knew that it wasn't going to be a good thing. I knew it was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So that was definitely scary. And at that time also, I was in that Christian school. So I was hearing all the time that, you're going to burn in hell. And at that time, I'm like 13 or 14 years old. So I'm still just naturally trying to, understand, why is this happening to me? Why am I not, feeling this way towards girls, but only towards, like, I'm not understanding it.
Yeah.
And I just kind of had this innate understanding within myself. I'm like, I'm a child. I'm like 13 or 14 years old. I'm like, there's, this is just me thinking as a child, I'm like, there's no way an all-loving God would put this in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
If it was wrong, or if it was not natural, or if he was going to turn around and punish me for it, that makes no sense. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you create me, put this in my heart, make it to where, like, if I were to be with a woman, it would be a lie. I wouldn't be happy. I would be keeping her from somebody who could truly love her for who she would be. And that would, to me, that's more emasculating and cowardice than just being truthful to who I am because of what these people may think.
Yeah.
Or what this book says that's old and has been translated and all of these other things which we could go on and on about. And I just, at that age, I wasn't sure still, but I knew that there wasn't something wrong with me. I was like, so I'm not going to entertain this any further. I closed the book on that, on Christianity and the Bible, and I left that school and went to public school and never looked back. For a while anyways.
So do you think, like, now, looking back, do you think, because still, like, going to church and stuff like that, it kind of plays in your mind, because I like to go to church, but I don't want to be condemned. I don't want to be, screamed at about homosexuality and all those things.
I try to, now let me be clear, I am a follower of Christ and I'm a deep believer in, we talked briefly about, who I think he was and is, but I think in their heart, these people think that they're coming from a place of good. I think that they think they're trying to save you from something. But to me, it's hypocritical if you're going to call yourself a Christian or even a follower of Christ, because that's totally the opposite of what he at least taught in the Bible.
Yeah.
Compassion, non-judgment, forgiveness. And I, just studying his life and who he was, I just don't see him ever condemning anybody for something like that. That was beyond their control.
Yeah.
And I don't see a situation where, a God creates you to have this one life and puts this in your heart and then expects you to not act on it or to be miserable and be lonely your whole life. What kind of an existence is that? What kind of all-loving, all-knowing being would ever put somebody through that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Seems like everything that is godly in my life, it just flows. You know what I mean? There's like not a lot of resistance. There will be some bumps in the road, whatever, but you can overcome them with some persistence. But like a lifelong punishment like that of being attracted to the same sex and wanting to have just a normal relationship, it's daunting to me to think that it's not allowed. You know what I mean? It's not to be.
Well, not only that, but I think what I think is the most hurtful thing when what people say is essentially what you're saying is I don't know what it means to love somebody, and I definitely know what it means to love somebody. I know the difference between having emotional attraction or emotional attachment to one or the other. I can honestly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, say I've never felt that for a female in my life, but I've felt it multiple times for a male. So this idea, or even that it's a choice or a lifestyle, that word triggers me a little bit. It's a lifestyle. I'm like, being straight isn't a lifestyle. Your sexuality isn't a lifestyle. It's a discovery. It's innately part of who you are. So when you come at me and you say, well, your behavior is, well, no, you're not saying my behavior is sinful. You're saying I and who I am and at the core of my being as I was created and born into this world is sinful and wrong. Mm-hmm. Not my actions, like what. And also, it seems so. I'm not somebody that like is big on gay marriage. If I'm ever with somebody that wants to do it, fine, let's do it. That's fine. I should have that option. Great for other people. But I think for you to come along and attach that word to belonging to one group of people, when your religion is only 2,000 years old, and there have been unions between humans for thousands of years before that. You can call it marriage, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But where does that come from, wanting to just come in and own something like that and try to other people and say, no, you can't have that? Or, that's really what bothers me. And then like standing on religion to do it, especially in this country.
Yeah. The Supreme Court just turned down the appeal to look at same-sex marriage. Literally,
Good
I think
choice.
Just like this week, it just came up today, I think.
Yeah.
And so, I think it was a good choice. I don't think you should give something to someone and take it back. And, it's marriage. It's not like it's the end of the world.
Well, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. And, I mean, health insurance. There are so many things that go along with marriage that are beneficial to couples, even if they're same sex. And if you love someone, you're dedicated to them, and you want to spend your life with them, like, you should be entitled to the same benefits as heterosexual people.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And, how can you say it's unnatural if it's naturally occurring within people?
Yeah.
I know for a fact it's naturally occurring within me. It's not something I chose. It's like, I didn't wake up, I hate tomatoes. I didn't wake up one day and go, I don't like tomatoes. I just have never liked tomatoes. I can't force myself to like tomatoes in the same way I can't force myself to, like women like that. I just can't. And I'm not going to live my life a lie or being afraid or not seeking genuine happiness because of somebody else's perspective. Now, I'm pretty thick-skinned, and, it doesn't really bother me too much if you believe I'm going to burn in hell. I don't, there's not really too much I can do about that. I just worry about how it's going to affect people like myself, like it did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Especially these days, I'm seeing it more and more.
Yeah.
Especially people standing on the Bible to do it. And it's like,
when you're a child, you're innocent, and
it's abuse.
Yeah, and you are vulnerable, and the things that happen to you really stick with you. I went through a bout of drug addiction and some really crazy times, and grew up in really turbulent life, like probably until I was 15, 14, somewhere around there. My dad ran my mom over with a car when I was 5, and she had to be life flighted and wasn't going to make it. And it was just crazy. So there's always stuff like that, always abuse and things like that happening when I was really young. But those things played a part in, like, my self-worth going into adulthood that I never, you wouldn't think, you know what I mean? But all that stuff carries on. All that self-worth carries on until you learn how to find that yourself as an adult. And if nobody's teaching you that, if nobody's telling you, how to reinstill that, then you're screwed. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's the same way with somebody talking down to you. If you're different, if your hair is purple, or if you want to be gay or whatever, you need people to lift you up and build you up instead of tear you down when you're young.
Yeah. And I think, especially for, people like ourselves growing up in, more smaller towns or conservative families, it adds an extra layer of difficulty because you might not grow up around people like that. Thankfully I did grow up in Columbus, where even though, I didn't feel like it would be accepted within my inner family group, I had friends, one or two friends in particular who I was able to kind of look at and be like, okay, it isn't abnormal, so I am grateful for that. And also, growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, I think that was kind of a good era for a gay kid to grow up in, because even though you might not have been feeling like you might be accepted at home or amongst your friend group, you were still growing up in a time where you could see that it was being more and more openly accepted. Like, I remember as a kid, there was like an episode of Oprah on, and this lady was like accosting Oprah about, and I'm no fan of Oprah, just to be clear, but accosting her about, and this is like early 90s, so, about how it's okay to be gay, and, and my dad was just going off about it. And I remember being like, oh no, this isn't good for me. Yeah. But
you're
things
seeing
like
that reaction, and you're like, holy crap, like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to come out.
Yeah, and like little things like that, that it suppresses you, and it, like, you don't forget things like that.
Yeah.
You're
like, think about how mad my dad was at Oprah.
Yeah.
And doesn't even know those people, and he's never, like, going to accept me.
Yeah, and that's still a kind of a rough. It's more like the elephant in the room. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's old school. He went through some stuff as a kid and has his own opinions about it. And I don't try to change his mind. It's just something we just don't talk about. It's just kind of one of those things you learn to accept.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I had to accept I probably won't ever have kids. It's just the way it is. You like, acceptance is one of those things in life. It's like you just have to learn to accept the way that things are. One of my favorite quotes, Miyamoto Musashi: "Truth is not what you want it to be. It is what it is, and you must bend to its power or live a lie." And that quote sticks with me always.
That's a good one.
You see. And I don't go around thinking I know the whole truth of everything, and trying to. I try not to be too preachy, but I definitely will stand up for what I believe in, and I won't be moved from it. And I've put in the work, and I put in the time and the effort and the spiritual work, and just diving in all levels of knowledge that I possibly can to understand before taking a stance on something. And I think so many people don't do that. I think they just see things from one perspective. And so, like, when I say, people say this is my truth, I've never really been interested. Your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. Who I am and my authentic self. But I look at the truth as a singular. It's singular. Truth is singular. Its versions are mistruths. So, I think that there are a multitude of ways to reach, a higher level of consciousness, or the universe, or God, or the source, or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, I think, the same thing is going to happen to all of us. I think what you do is, and how you live your life, how you treat others. Yeah, I think we kind of talked on this briefly about, I'm a firm believer, spirituality teaches you that God is already within you, whereas, religion teaches you that God is somewhere out there to find.
Absolutely.
And it reminds me of this book I read when I was in the Marines called The Alchemist. Are you familiar with The Alchemist, the Santiago? And he goes on this epic adventure to looking for this treasure. And, by the end of it, he comes back home and he realizes it was within himself. It was right there the whole time.
Yeah.
And that was my journey, finding God. And I grew from a place of hating being gay to being very thankful, because I wondered, would I have gone on this journey if I was straight? Would I have questioned these beliefs if my life was so easy to just have been straight? Maybe I should be thankful for this. Maybe it gave me a filter to see through things and see things differently that others may not have seen.
Yeah.
All because at that early age, I was exposed to something that traumatized me and turned me away from that. But, once I became deeply spiritual and, kind of discovered that we're all different pieces of a prime source consciousness existing in a physical realm, experiencing and evolving and growing and just living out different aspects.
Yeah.
And, obviously we talked, I'm a big believer in reincarnation, and I think the LGBT communities is evidence of it big time. I think, especially if you have like a young effeminate boy and you put him next to a young masculine boy, what's the difference here? Why is this one clearly more naturally acting more effeminate and this one is not? Likely because this boy just got done living a life as a woman. That's the only logical thing I could think of. When it comes to the transgender thing, I used to take a pretty hard stance because I didn't really feel like I didn't like being lumped into the same group as them.
Yeah.
And
most gays don't.
Because I didn't think it was it's not, I'm not confused about my gender, but I think that the symptom could be the same. I think it's just spiritual amnesia. I think, at some point in, probably in past lives of mine, I've lived lives as a woman, and, even if I live a life as a man, I'm still going to have that innate attraction to men. So rather than, being judgmental towards transgender people, I try to think, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
And, in my own spiritual journey of understanding, the Bible wasn't answering where this was coming from, and I knew that it wasn't wrong. And once I started diving into more of the Eastern faiths and, reincarnation, I was like, well, this makes a lot more sense. And it isn't some far out there belief. Reincarnation predates, Abrahamic faiths. And still to this day, more mainstream religions believe in reincarnation than the big three is what I like to call them.
I lived as a transgender person for about...
I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
About 8 years, like 8 to 10 years, somewhere in there. And what I can say from my experience is that I was seeking an identity, and I was trying to make one instead of be the one that I was dealt. You know what I mean? Because, this is me completely. I'm artistic. Probably have ADHD. Fucking, you know what I mean? Wild.
Right.
I'm a wild card, and but that's what and I'm a bridge. I don't lay with these people and not these people. I talk to everybody, from the poorest person to the richest person, and I get in every room that I want to be in, and I love that about myself, and I think that's who I truly am.
Because you've been judged and you don't pass it on to others.
Right.
I know exactly how that...
Because I know how that feels. Yes.
I'm the same way. I don't look at anybody and think, I won't eat with them. I won't sit with them. They're going to burn. I can't imagine going through life and being like, everybody that doesn't believe what I believe is going to burn in hell for all of eternity.
Because in spiritual principles, you learn, that we're all just in this together. Yeah. No matter which way you look at it. So... You're just looking at some piece of you in a different form.
Absolutely, 100%.
If you truly believe the spiritual principles that God is split into a gazillion pieces, and He's in this dish, this candle, me, you, the air we breathe, the thoughts we think, everything. So, yeah, it's very simple to me, and I live life simply like that.
And I think that that's how creation was meant to always be.
Yeah,
if you have to go through all these theological gymnastics and take an hour to explain how all the things that it takes to try to tie Yahweh to Jesus and them to be the same person when they clearly are not.
Yeah. I just had a discussion the other day. It's Jehovah and Jehovah's Witness. I was like, what?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like,
So but it's all these different religions, but they all come down to the same thing when you look at it. It's, God is within every man.
Right. And once I became deeply spiritual and I revisited, because I always felt this draw to Jesus, I just didn't understand fully what was going on there. And then when I went back and like really educated myself, understanding the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I started to analyze who was Jesus, who is this Yahweh, and I'm like going through and I'm like, these are not the same. This is not the same person. There's no way.
I'm not a Bible scholar at all. I haven't even looked into any of it because I'm like, this is too many freaking words for me. Like, give me a video on YouTube.
I don't dive that much into it. Like, I'm not somebody that can quote scripture, but let's see, like
I can quote Thessalonians 4:11. It's pretty much saying, mind your own business, work with your own hands.
But I did, anytime I do, I try to like write down scriptures that might like catch my interest or something that just like,
I love this,
rings odd to me. Let's see here. Well, first,
because you know what, I go to church and you know what I do? I tell the pastor, like, I got a lot of questions. You're going to have to tell me who God is and who Jesus is and how you're talking about them in the same sentence together. It's the same thing. And then, you know what I mean? Because like, I go to a Christian church and they're telling me Jesus is Lord, God, but then they're talking about God, and I'm like, you're losing me here. Like, I'm a very simple man, like, but I
think God is simple too.
And that's what I think. I honestly think God is everything loving and kind and it flows easy and good. You know what I mean?
Right. I think people just cling. They need to. We live in a reality where nobody really knows what the hell's going on.
Exactly.
Everybody thinks they know.
They think they know
what's going on, but nobody really fucking knows what's actually going on.
And that's why it's fucking hard for me to listen to.
Like, just grab. Everybody just needs something to believe in. Needs to know that there's nothing, or that there's something after. Something after death. But anyways, let me.
Let's hear it.
A few weeks ago, I was actually going through, and I picked out a couple verses that I'm like, because a lot of fundamentalist Christians will say God is all loving and all knowing, and but when they say this, they're speaking of like Jesus and Yahweh as if they're the same person, they're the same entity or the same being, and just to me they clearly aren't. And let's see, what is this one? This verse right here was a big one that was even used to justify slavery back in the colonial days. You may acquire male and female slaves from the nations around you. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you to inherit as a permanent possession. Leviticus 25:44-46. That is not something that an all-loving or all-knowing God that would be capable of creating all of this that we see.
And it's pretty much slavery.
That is not, and the sort of theological gymnastics that they will go through to try to justify this and say, oh, well, that's the Old Testament. Jesus came and brought the new covenant. And I'm like, but you'll still reach back to this old covenant to justify whatever it is at the time. It's like a mirror.
It's still in the book.
Well, right. Or even to condemn homosexuality, they always reach to the Old Testament, because in the New Testament, Jesus does not speak on homosexuality.
I did a deep dive on the whole homosexuality thing, and in the Greek text, if you look up the
Malakoi something.
The actual meaning of like the Greek text in the same passage is like laying with young boys.
Yes, laying with children.
It's like pedophilia.
Absolutely. Well, and they leaves out lesbians. You know what I mean? So, and you have to realize the Old Testament, in these ancient times, the Jews were surrounded. Mm-hmm. It was a numbers game. They didn't want homosexuality. They needed procreation. They needed babies. Yeah. So that's just my personal opinion as to probably likely why that was put in there, if that's the original text.
Another thing. That's another thing that gets me is like, how many times have we had this revised, and who revised it, and why?
Well, yeah, and I mean, how are you going to stand here and use the same book to condemn homosexuality?
Give me the clay text. I will learn how to decipher those.
Well, right, and
I'd feel safer that way.
And when keep in mind that these scriptures were used to justify slavery. It's the Bible is a mirror. If you're looking for slavery, you'll find it. If you're looking for homophobia, you'll find it. If you're looking for genocide, you'll find it. If you're looking for inclusion, you'll find it. If you're looking for forgiveness, you'll find it. So it's
Everything's
really,
in there.
Yeah, it's what are you looking for? What are you looking to learn? Are you looking to justify your homophobia towards somebody?
Or what are you looking to teach?
Well, yeah, because and this is why I say Yahweh and Jesus could not be the same entity or being, because one is they're totally separate, they're totally opposite.
Why do you believe that? You tell me why you believe that, because
Well,
I need to understand this.
It dives more into not just
where did you find the separation?
Well, it wasn't until I circled back to the Bible and started reading it from a spiritual perspective, and also somebody who studied very deeply ancient aliens and Yahweh in these times, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. Every ancient culture around was talking about beings, these demigods, these beings, that you have.
And if you don't think aliens exist, and
Right.
you really
Right. I mean,
you're not living up real
and
life.
how do you explain Goliath? Where did Goliath come from?
Yeah. Well, there's giants in every single
and they'll say,
corner
the
of the earth.
Nephilim, these beings, that fallen angels came and so they interbreeded with humans, and that's where giants came from. They would have to have physical bodies to be breeding with humans,
Yeah.
right? So clearly these are beings coming from space or somewhere else other than Earth and interbreeding with humans. And it goes into the stories of the Anunnaki, these beings that came at some point. Now, they didn't create the planet. The planet was, I would guess that's where these stories of like Atlantis come from. Like the way the Earth was just kind of naturally evolving, doing its thing organically before these beings, these outside entities came in and kind of took over the planet. And there's evidence of that in the Mahabharata. Are you familiar with that?
No.
It's an ancient Hindu Indian text that basically describes like ancient space battles that predate the Bible by like 1,500 years. That leads right into these beings coming into the Garden of Eden, and in the ancient Sumerian tales, it's literally like almost the same story. These beings coming, not necessarily creating humans, but taking the human being that was here at the time and manipulating its DNA and forming it into a slave race
I've heard about all this.
Right. But it's not taking away from the original creation of the planet. It's just, hey, these beings came in and they started messing around with
morphing things into what they want.
Right. And you have all of these tales, especially in like the Mayan culture, Chinese culture, Aztec, all over the 2,000-3,000 years ago, of these reptilian beings.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like Anunnaki, reptilian, same thing, shapeshifter, but and I remember first hearing about these things like 15 years ago and never talking to anybody about it because it was so fringe,
far-fetched.
So fringe. And now it's like every other person I meet's like, have you heard about the reptilians?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God,
listen,
this is crazy.
Now they're literally on, public news saying that, there are ships coming out of the ocean.
Right.
So, Atlantis doesn't seem too far-fetched at that point.
Well, not just that, but so what it seems to me is all of these, that Yahweh was likely some Anunnaki space being, and I'm pretty sure that there were multiple gods in the Jewish pantheon other than Yahweh. There was like Asherah and some other ones, and when the church manipulated the story, they were going for that monotheistic theme, so they narrowed it down to just Yahweh. And then King James changed, or I don't know if it was King James or like the newer versions of the Bible, they changed Yahweh to Lord, so that it doesn't even say Yahweh specifically anymore. Like, where does that name even come from? Where does the name Yahweh even come from? You know what I mean? Like, and so when I look at a being doing these things, promoting slavery.
What about Yeshua?
Well, that's just Jesus' real name.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So Jesus is the English translation of Yeshua, as far as I'm concerned. And Christ is just the anointed one. It's just like the title. So Jesus. There's another name for him that I've read in like some Dolores Cannon, Sananda. I don't know if that has any significance to it, but like he's an ascended master,
Makes sense.
We can go down that rabbit hole also, but no, what we're talking about, I don't even remember.
I just think it's interesting to now hear, like Yahweh.
Oh, the reptilians, yeah. Reptilians.
Yahweh versus Jesus and not being the same.
So, yeah, I would say, and this goes back to like early Gnostic Christianity. Are you familiar with Gnostic Christianity?
No.
So, right after the crucifixion, Christianity took two different paths. Catholicism, took Jesus' story, ran with it, kind of molded it into what they wanted it to be. And then there was the mystics, the Gnostics. And these were the ones that were teaching spirituality, that kingdom is within you, that, God isn't found in a church. It isn't found in a pastor. It isn't found in a preacher. It isn't found in a pope. It isn't found in any of these things. It's found within you. And because the Catholic Church did not want that version, they cast out all these as heretics and,
all the bad
the
things.
same thing that the Bible says that happened to all of, his disciples, that's what happened to the mystics back then too. It was anybody and even the same thing happens to me today when I tell people the kingdom is within you. We are all God living in different pieces, experiencing this. They're like, that's heresy. Da, da, da. And I'm like, well, they said the same thing to Jesus back when he was saying this. So, and it wasn't until I became spiritual that I revisited Jesus and I was like, oh, he was just a spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
A really highly evolved spiritual teacher.
And that's exactly how I felt upon becoming.
They killed him. They killed him. Because he was causing a spiritual awakening and a revival, and they couldn't have that because if you don't need a church or you don't need any of those things.
You don't need anything else.
They lose control.
Yeah.
So they killed him. And then they manipulated the story that said, oh, well, he came and died on the cross for your sins to put the blame onto you, the sinner, rather than them who
You're the bad person.
Yeah, you're the bad person. It's a really well elaborate story that was manipulated clearly by control systems to keep people away from spirituality, the true inner knowing of oneself.
Yeah. And I think that's truly what it is. It's once you sit alone with yourself and you truly hear the voice of God within you, and it's like,
your entire perspective of the world changes. When you look at like an animal or a bug or another person or a homeless person, and you see that as another version of yourself, you are much more compassionate. You're much more kind. You're much more understanding.
Yeah.
You're less judgmental. You're just like, and you see worth in everybody rather than,
you see everything for what it is and its part, the part that it's playing. You don't try to condemn it. You don't try to control it. You don't try to move it at your will. You just let it exist, and that all things will work out because that's how it works. And you don't have the power to condemn. It's not your job to judge. It's, if you don't like something, you have the right to walk away from it, and you don't have to be a part of it. And I think that a lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to be upset because a lot of people go to church. I go to church, and the church is probably going to burn me as I walk in the door next time I go, but that's okay. Because if people don't know anything about me, they know that I speak my mind and I ask a lot of questions. And
why do you have to subscribe to their specific belief? Like, I get into this discussion all the time.
That's the thing.
People.
I don't.
I'm like, I couldn't force myself to believe what you believe in the way that you believe it if I wanted to. I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to. I can't make myself believe this version because I already have too much deep inner spiritual knowledge to know where God actually exists, and it isn't out there somewhere. And you wouldn't know this unless you've looked.
My entire life, everything in my life that went wrong was turned around when I adopted spirituality, when I got to know myself, when I meditated on myself and all of the wrongdoings in my life, the things I did, the things that were done against me. And I got that knowing and that understanding that everything is in place as it should be, and you have to learn to accept those things, and you have to be grateful for those experiences, and that evolves you into the human that you were supposed to be. And so that was the turning point of stripping off all the transgenderism and all those things and just sitting with myself, facing the world again naked was what I came here with. And that's when I rose faster than ever and started to do things that I wanted to do my whole life but couldn't find a way to, living a false life. But as soon as I'm authentic in myself, everything turned around. I didn't start going to church until these past few years. I never really went to church. And I never studied the Bible or anything. So that shows me that like all those spiritual principles that I adopted, like love your neighbor, and it's really just the things they talk about Jesus teaching is like, if you just adopt that stuff and you really implement that into your life and, just live out of kindness and love.
Well, this conversation
will turn it around.
This conversation that we're actually having is, I would venture to say, is probably a conversation that some of our founders had. Because, how familiar are you with Thomas Jefferson? Author,
I know who he is.
Author of Declaration of Independence.
It's all my money.
What's
right?
that? Oh, yeah. No, he was author of the Declaration of Independence, but he actually created his own version of the Bible, the Jefferson Bible. And it's just the morals and teachings of Jesus Christ, because he read through the Old Testament and saw the exact same thing that we're sitting here talking about. Like, how can this doesn't make, these two things aren't correlating. So he literally took a razor blade and went through and cut out everything that was just the teachings of Jesus Christ and made his own Bible out of it. And that was his personal Bible.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And where did you find this out at?
Just
Study.
Just research it. I'm obsessed with American history, specifically the founding fathers and the founding of the country and the Enlightenment period, specifically George Washington, which leads, we can start getting into Freemasonry, actually, and why I was so interested in Freemasonry and kind of how I became a Freemason.
Yeah, and so that leads us into, you are a Freemason.
I am a Freemason, yes.
I have family members that are Freemasons. We talked about that a little bit. The Blue Lodge.
Yes.
Is what you're in.
Yeah, so the Blue Lodge is sort of where you get your start in Freemasonry. So there's three. Your first is you join the lodge, which...
You know that people are like, Freemasons are evil.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would, I always think of, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Please don't tell me the Freemasons invented Star Wars.
No.
Okay.
They did invent, people take the actions of one Mason and go, oh, the Freemasons. It's like, okay, no, calm down. But only a Sith deals in absolutes. I love that quote. That's another good quote. And it's just essentially, don't broadly generalize things in life like that. And
we do.
More times than not, things are more complicated than it just being black or white.
Absolutely. Just like
you take away from
spirituality.
you take away from the individual when you go around saying every Freemason is part of some satanic, weird Kabbalah, whatever.
But people like a good drama story.
Well, and we can go, I can do my best to dissect some of it, but also without completely making people think that they're, that they're irrational or crazy, because I was on that side of conspiracy theories before I became a Mason. So I was very familiar with them. But again, you can't take the actions of one person, one man, and just broadly stroke all the rest of Freemasons.
Are you sure they just haven't brainwashed you into like their way?
I'm very sure.
Okay.
But and another thing, trust me, if there was something nefarious or evil about Freemasonry, I would be the first person to come out and be like, hey, there's some dark, evil stuff going on here.
I think there may be, it's just like churches. They're like at our local level, there's nothing like nefarious or evil going on. It's true loving people that are trying to do what they see as the right thing. But I think at the top of like mega churches and things like that,
oh, absolutely,
yeah, there could be a little too much power, a little too much money, and a little too much crazy. Just like Freemasonry, I think maybe at the top, yeah, it could be some shifty things.
Well, I would say maybe in the past, maybe could have been some Masons.
I'd say today.
Well, I would ask you to point to me a Mason in power that is.
I'd have to do my research.
Well, I have, and there really isn't any. The only Mason, well, he's not in power anymore.
That's very convenient for a Mason to say.
Well, I mean, I invite you to, please do your own research. And, it comes in a lot like, oh, well, how do you know for sure that they're a Mason? A lot of Masons don't come out and just say that they're a Mason. I personally don't care. I'll tell anybody I'm a Mason. It doesn't really bother me. But let's
Are
get
you
back.
proud of it?
Yeah, it's.
What did it take to become a Mason?
Okay, here, let's very well. All right, so. Well, actually, let's start with this. Fun fact. Since today is the Marine Corps birthday.
Yes.
Ton Tavern
Are
doubled.
Marines Masons?
Here we go. So the first two Marines were Freemasons.
Okay.
Ton Tavern.
Do you know their names? Oh.
Yes. Samuel Nichols and Robert Mullen. Samuel Nichols was the first commandant in the Marine Corps, and Robert Mullen was the first recruiter. But Ton Tavern actually doubled as a Masonic lodge. It wasn't just a bar. So when Congress...
Where was this tavern at?
Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And when Congress put the order out to establish the Marine Corps, Ton Tavern was the recruiting center, and Robert Mullen and Sammy Nichols were the
Kind of
first.
like an undercover operation.
So I mean, it was
Just a convenient meeting place. You could drink and get recruited.
well, a lot of bars doubled as Masonic
Or you
lodges back
may
then.
have had to be drunk to be recruited.
Oh well, I mean, again, I wasn't alive back then, at least not that I know of.
It was a good story, though.
Yeah, but nobody makes you become a Mason. You have to do it of your own free will and accord.
You don't have to drink baby's blood or anything like that?
No, you don't drink baby. There was no point ever in becoming a Freemason where I had to spill any blood or anything like that.
Okay.
There's nothing like that. But essentially, the way that I joined my lodge was I was actually waiting tables at the time at Cameron's American Bistro before I started managing at a very, very short time. And I was taking care of this guy who's now my mentor of like 4 years. Great guy, absolutely amazing human being. And that's why it's like you get to know some of these guys and you're like, there's no way any of this that they're a part. That's why I say don't deal in absolutes. But I saw his ring and I was like, oh, you're a Freemason. He's like, yeah. And he saw, because I still wear my Marine Corps ring. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Marine. He's like, and I, was kind of asking him some questions about Freemasonry. And because I told him I was familiar with, the history of, George Washington being a Mason, Benjamin Franklin being a Mason, and how I loved American history. And he was like, well, you should come by, the lodge is right down the street, and have dinner with us. You can ask some questions and see if it's something that you're interested in. I was like, all right. So I went and had dinner with him, and I walked in and I was like, there is no way any of these little old men are a part of anything bad. Like, there's just no way. Like, immediate vibe. Like,
what about like back in the day, maybe?
No.
No?
No. And I just was like, no. Once you get more into Freemasonry and you start to really see from what it is from the inside, you understand. But you can't, the way that something appears on the outside is not the way that it appears once you're on the inside looking. And again, like Freemasonry is a house of many rooms.
It's kind of like local politics.
I say it's like Little Rascals for adults. Like we have a lodge, we have a clubhouse. You have to know the secret handshake to get in.
That sounds gross.
Well, I mean, the high sign,
yeah.
Little Rascals. But, and there is secrecy. There is secrecy in Freemasonry, but it's not like secrets of the universe or anything like that, or like turning, lead to gold or alchemy. Like, it's not like that. It's really all your own interpretation, and a lot of it's allegorical. But you go to the lodge, and if you like it and you like the guys, you can say, yeah, I'm interested. They petition. And then everybody has to vote.
They got to sign it. Oh, they got to vote.
Everybody has to. Well, you have to get a background check first because you cannot be a felon. You cannot have a criminal record.
I'm out.
Well, it can be waived. It really depends on what you did. If you did something violent or
they'll be like, we don't want you.
Yeah.
Gay.
So you do have to be. No. Well, they knew I was gay. I
really?
was very upfront about it. Yes. Because they do an investigation and they ask you They ask you
if you're gay?
No. They just ask you about your life, and they're just trying to make sure that it's a good fit for you.
Did you say, like, do you accept gays?
No, I just told them I was gay, and they said, that's fine.
They said, so are we?
I just said, just so you know, I'm going to put this out there. I don't know how this is
going to go. Were
go.
they like, we're gay too? Like,
no, but they were like, oh, there is a couple. They pointed out, like, hey, he's gay, and there's a couple.
Yeah.
But it's not religious. The requirements are you have to believe in a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be 18 years old. It might be 19, but I'm pretty sure you just have to be 18. You have to be, and you have to do it of your own free will and accord. It has to be up to you. Nobody can make you do it. And you become an entered apprentice, and you go through the ritual, and then you become a fellow craft. You go through the ritual, and then you become a master mason.
A fellow craft.
Fellow craft. So yeah, those are the
craft,
first.
like Craft the movie.
Like, yes.
Like
fellow craft. It's like the craft. The craft is
witchery.
The craft is Freemasonry. The craft is sacred geometry.
Oh, okay.
You have it right there on your arm.
I do have it on my arm. I do.
So I guess if I had to define Freemasonry, it is a group of men who come together under the common belief of a higher supreme being who...
Do they call that God?
Well, our word for it is Grand Architect of the Universe. You can call it God. But because we have every faith is welcome in Freemasonry, so they chose a term that was all encompassing of,
For such a legendary group as Freemasons, why do you think they let all religions in and they call it the grand architect of the universe.
Why do I think they let all religions in?
Yeah, but why? Now think about this. Give me a deep, like, thought out answer. Going back to our church conversation, why do they?
Because it's more of a spiritual.
But they're one of the most,
in my opinion, anyways.
Freemasons are. They built the country.
You could say that, yeah.
They did. George Washington.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely. 100%.
laying the stones in Washington D.C.
Yeah. You could say that, but
Now,
if it wasn't for the
would-
Masonic connection between Benjamin Franklin and George Washington, that maybe the Revolutionary War wouldn't have been able to have been won. How do you think Benjamin Franklin got the French to come save our ass?
But why would they call it the great architect of the universe and not God?
Well, you could call it either.
But why would they? Do they know something we don't know?
No. I mean, maybe a lot of knowledge could have been lost throughout the years. I can't say.
I don't think the Freemasons lost shit.
Well,
I think they've got it all intact.
Well, you have to understand, seeking knowledge is something that you do as an individual. It's not something that's given to you. So, just because you become a Mason doesn't mean you become enlightened, and it doesn't mean
that's true.
But
you have to seek
knowledge on your own. Like, there's knowledge that I've gained. I could say I have a better perspective of it from an angle of being a Mason, but it isn't necessarily that I got that knowledge because I was a Mason.
But if you get into Masonry, you're obviously looking to climb the ladder.
It's different for everybody.
It's like getting on a board.
I think a lot of people think that, and they may join a lodge thinking that that's what they want out of it.
Then you look up to someone who's higher than you.
Well, nobody's higher. We're all on the level. That's what we call it. We're all the same. No Mason is
33rd
higher.
degree. What's that?
Well, like I said, it's an honorary degree.
Okay.
It's
They have more honors than you.
Well, yeah, but they can't like order me to do anything.
Right.
Like,
but you want to know what they know.
Like I said, I don't know. I don't know it. I don't know that they get any special knowledge when they become a 33rd degree Mason. Like I said, it's a committee that meets, and every year they select a handful of 32nd Scottish Rite degree Masons who have dedicated a life to Freemasonry, and it's like, hey, you've done a great job. You've done all this stuff for Freemasonry. We're going to make you a 33rd degree Mason. Other than that, I don't know anything else. Like,
I did learn the Freemasons, they contribute to St. Jude's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly, they got the Shriners. And like I said, Freemasonry is a house of many rooms. So once you become a Master Mason, there are so many other groups within Freemasonry. There are invite-only groups you can only get in if somebody comes and invites you. I'm also a Royal Archmason and a Knights Templar. So that is the Christian path of. So there's you can go to the Scottish Rite, you can go to the York Rite, which the York Rite is Royal Archmasonry to Knights Templar, or you can go Scottish Rite, or you could do both. And again, there's Shriners, which is another branch. There's the Grotto, which is something else. I don't really know what that is.
So what are you planning on doing?
As far as my career in Freemasonry?
Yeah.
Or, right now I'm the senior deacon of my lodge, and I'm getting ready to move to junior warden, which I'm sure that's a foreign language to people. Honestly, for me, Freemasonry, it's more about the way in which you carry and conduct yourself in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's about squaring your actions.
Squaring your actions.
Explain that. And it goes back to sacred geometry. If I could define Freemasonry, in one definition, it would be a group of men who come together under the common belief of a higher power or creator that incorporate sacred geometry into their lives to become better or the best versions of themselves possible, to in turn make the world a better place.
That's not a bad thing.
No. Now, and my experience with it is very beautiful when you look at it that way. And again, a lot of it's allegorical, but I can only speak to my experience and what I've seen and experienced, and it's been nothing but a beautiful thing. It's helped me to really just kind of polish up on what a lot of the things I already were instilled in me in the Marine Corps. It's
makes sense because the Marines founded the Freemasons.
When you get into Knights Templar and you start doing the sword stuff, because they do drill in Knights Templar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, but it's like the same. The sword manual is exactly the same. And you're like, I know where they got this from, or I know where the Marine Corps got it from, but it is essentially the same. But yeah, you can see a lot. Well, and also it kind of helps you understand like who the founders were and the sort of things that they did, and, you know, why they were the way that they were, why they viewed things the way that they did. And, you know, like in a lot of the founding documents, it doesn't reference a Christian God, it just says God, or like, and I think a lot of that comes from like, you know, deism or the Enlightenment. And also, you know, the fact that George Washington, a lot of the founders were Masons, and that grand architect of that all encompassing sort of, we acknowledge that there's a creator, but we're not going to label it for any specific religion. And that's kind of, I think that that's a lot of the foundational Enlightenment principles that this country was founded on do stem from Freemasonry.
Yeah. Do you did you study the pyramids at all?
I actually have a tattoo of a pyramid, but I got into, we'd have to go back to when I first got into the Marines and really started going down like my awakening conspiracy rabbit hole. When I joined the Marines, I joined 2009. I left for boot camp. Oh, boot camp. That was crazy. Do you want to talk about boot camp?
Yeah.
Well, so Boots, it's the show on Netflix, and it just covers boot camp, but it's absolutely hysterical.
Is it gay?
Yeah, it's about a gay Marine who
a show with the name Boots has to be gay.
Well, yeah, but I could not have seen a show on Netflix that I could more identify with, like on a personal level, because I went through boot camp under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and it is definitely.
So that's gone. Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah, it was repealed under Obama.
Okay.
But when I joined, it was still in. So I was in for 4 years. The first 2 years was Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then the second 2 years it was repealed. But boot camp.
You're like, I'm going to come out. Like,
well, I just got tired of wearing the mask, and, you know, like my friends and family back home, like that small circle, kind of already knew. And I had kind of, at that point in my life, I was like 22 or 23, and I had kind of like come to terms with it and was like, all right, you know, if I'm going to be, well, even before, like joining the Marines was one of those things for me that I really wanted to do, because when I started to kind of realize, because I struggled big time with it from 16 to like 25. I would say 16, once 24 and 25 rolled around towards like the end of my time in the Marines, I was kind of like, you know, this is causing a lot of problems for me. Like, I just need to accept it and move on, you know, and just be myself. But boot camp, I remember leaving and getting there. Like you get to the airport, and then they're like getting us all together, and then we get on a bus, and it's like dark, and you have to have your head down, and it takes like, from the airport, it takes like probably an hour to get to Parris Island, I think. But I just remember the drill instructor coming up on the bus, getting us all up, and I remember like literally stepping off the bus, my foot on the ground, and being like, here we go, like this is about to be crazy. And it was just pure chaos from the very get-go, like, because you get off the bus, you stand in the yellow footprints that kind of give you this rundown, and they open up these hatches that you only go through once, doors that you only go through once, and then you go through as a civilian, and you come back out a Marine, but you only go through those doors that one time. And you go in and you sit down, and you're sitting at this desk and filling out all your receiving paperwork, and then you go and you have to like call your family, let them know that you made it. And I remember there was this girl, and she just couldn't handle it immediately. She just broke down and started crying, and they just swarmed her. And just like was screaming, and she just broke down. So I'm like, this girl ain't gonna make it. Like, we've been here for 5 minutes. But in like the first couple of days, it's just like running around, getting all your equipment, and getting to your platoon, and getting to where you're gonna be. And like I think it's like 2 or 3 days go by, you don't get any sleep, but you're just like, how long have I been here? What's going on? Like, and then he starts in first phase, and I remember like we had to do like an initial PFT, and it was
What's a PFT?
Physical fitness test, or like an IST, was it, initial strength test. It's basically like you have to be able to do a run under a certain amount of time, you have to do so many pull-ups, and you have to do so many crunches, so they can like establish where you are, like if you're going to get to go to training and actually go to your platoon, or if you got to go to like conditioning to make sure you're stronger before they'll actually let you go to your platoon. And I remember it was like December when I first got there, and it was so cold, wet, and rainy. It was awful. And we're like standing and I'm like we're getting ready to do this run. And then we have to like take off our sweatpants, and I'm like standing in this mud puddle. Literally, it's a mud puddle. And I'm like, It's just like stuff like that would happen ever. Just like the most miserable shit. Like just the most miserable shit ever. And I'm like, okay, so I like take and like they're soaked at this point, and I'm like trying to get them off, and like one's stuck, and I like fall over into the water, and I'm like freezing cold, and I have to go this whole run, the whole first run. I'm freezing my ass off. That was like my first like introduction of like, this is gonna fucking suck. This is gonna be so hard. And I remember there was a kid who, everybody got so sick. It was so bad. That was one thing I'll never forget.
You're exhausting yourself like never before.
Everybody's coming in from all these different areas of the country. Everybody's got germs, and people were getting pneumonia left and right. And I mean, this one kid got pneumonia so bad he went to the corpsman and they popped his lung, and he had to go home and never got to finish boot camp. I mean, it was bad. I got sick. I got pneumonia. It was.
What do you think boot camp instilled in you or taught you about yourself that you didn't know before?
It sounds cliche, but you can do anything you set your mind to. Like, I remember doing the confidence, or just so many things that I was so intimidated and thinking, I'm never going to be able to do any of this, or I'm never going to be able to do this. And I remember that was like a large part of the reason why I joined the Marines is I was like, if I'm going to be gay, like, which I am, I've got to do something, because I didn't want to be emasculated. I didn't want anybody to look at me like less than a man. So I was like, I've got to do something that's going to cancel out the ability for anybody to ever look at me like that. And so that's why. And then I went and watched my friend's graduation, and then joined the Marines, and that's
You're
how
like,
that
oh,
went.
this is going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
did it work?
Yeah, it definitely made me more confident, in myself. But when I first got in, after boot camp and, got through my training and got to the fleet, which I got stationed in Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, California, with 9th Com. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still in effect, so I still couldn't say anything to anybody. But I was still struggling with it too. Like, I still wasn't, looking back, like, I knew, but I just didn't want to accept it. Like, I still was like, I really want to make my mom and dad happy. I want to give them grandkids. Can I just like make it work? You go through those things, and it's just like, but deep down, you're like, no, there's no way I'm never going to be able to make that happen. So it's just not going to be a thing. But it definitely, even today, I'm like, I have a lot more confidence in myself, especially as a gay man. It's like, I try not to be like, oh, I'm this badass motherfucker, because I'm not. You can go through Marine Corps boot camp and not be some, can I shoot a rifle well? Yeah, I can shoot a rifle pretty good, but like, there are many people who could beat my ass if they really wanted, I'm sure. So, I mean, but it definitely gives you a level of confidence and this level of, like, if I am going to get into a fight with somebody, you're going to have to fucking kill me, because I'm not going to stop. Yeah. That's just that Marine Corps mentality.
Which is valuable.
It is. And I feel very, very well balanced, not just being a Marine and a Mason, but because I feel like the Marine in me, I was taught to save life, taught to take life. And then the Mason in me, even though I've always been a seeker of knowledge, it really helped round out, like, squaring my actions, subduing my passions, being more thoughtful.
Squaring your actions. It sounds like you're just doing actions that are.
No, it means.
If you do something, it should be for something.
No, more so it means keeping your actions within the bounds of morality. That's what it.
People wouldn't automatically think that about Masons.
I guess you would have to look at
the
fruit of their labor.
I'm people.
Like, what are they doing? And that's something I've said a lot to even my lodge. I'm like, we should, if you want to counteract a lot of these conspiracies and a lot of the things that people say, you need to be out in the world and showing people what Masons really are about and what they do.
Do they worry about the conspiracies, or do they just kind of ignore them?
I think the majority of Masons ignore them, because even in the few interactions I've had with people, I quickly realized that there's nothing I'm going to be able to say to them that's going to make them change their mind. Yeah. Like, they've already, even being somebody that was on the side of the conspiracies, like, I'm still a conspiracy theorist, which to me is just questioning things. Like,
you should question things.
Yeah, absolutely question things. But
when you find the answer, you should accept the answer. And I think that we're all on this self-discovery journey. you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, life itself, just even from, it's like a rat race. It's like trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. What is actually going on?
But the only thing you need to figure out what's going on is what's going on within me.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the hardest things I've had to learn is like seeing things happen that I don't like, that I have absolutely no control over, and just have to accept whatever is going to happen and be the best version of myself and create the best version of myself that I can in the meantime.
Yeah.
That's really all you can do right now.
It's
especially
not about,
with all the chaos going on in the world right now, especially in our country.
It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you react to what happens to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is purely it, because that's all you can control.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I've been to quite a few AA meetings, and, you know, I don't really drink much anymore. And, I've had my own struggles with, you know, I went to rehab when I was in the Marines, still dealing with, alcoholism from a lot of the, so obviously just mostly based around my sexuality, but then coming into the Marines and like asking questions and realizing like, oh my God, the government's totally corrupt. All of this, like, I felt like my reality was like melting and like the curtains were falling, and it was like, this is how the world really is, naive little one. Like this, it's nothing what you thought. Everything you have ever been told was a lie. This government is totally corrupt. It's not about
I can't stand the government anymore. Like,
yeah, well, yeah.
It's disgusting.
And, you know, I'm a huge Trump supporter since day one, because obviously I, you know, hate political corruption. I have a huge disdain for it, especially from the perspective of somebody who's taken the oath and, you know, deployed and essentially put my life on the line to see these politicians taking the same oath and sending my brothers and sisters overseas to die as they basically extort the American people and their tax dollars. And
it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. I mean, that's treason to me. Like, why are these people not being, I'm not even going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. We're literally letting other people in our country while we send, you know, our own citizens to die in
it sucks
in
because,
needless wars.
Well, yeah, and it sucks because people are being used as pawns on both sides. Like, I see all these migrants coming into the country, and I'm like, well, you know, a lot of them are fleeing areas that we bombed the shit out of.
Yeah, that are awful.
For another country.
Yeah, I
we
agree.
can go down that rabbit hole, too. Like, it's just...
Or they're, you know, in drug-infested countries, and, you know.
Is it really their fault that they're coming here to try to, you know, find a better life? Or, you know,
No.
You know?
And are all of them perfect? No.
No.
There are some criminals that are coming with those.
Yeah,
but
obviously get the criminals out.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people that are, I think, just seeking a better life.
Yeah, but, and, you know, you have, and the country's taken a huge, you know, that ever since the Charlie Kirk thing, you can just see the divide deepening even more. I think there was like a lull for a minute afterwards where everybody was like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? This is kind of crazy. We just took a hard turn. But you have, essentially now you have the far right, like the Christian nationalists, like really like trying to, in my opinion, create this fake history of America that never happened, where it's like, this is a Christian nation. And demographically speaking, yes, it always has been, but to say that it was founded on Christian principles is just not true. And then you have these
so you think it was founded on something else?
Well, it was founded on Enlightenment principles. I mean, if you
based on the Freemasonry.
Well, not just Freemasons. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, I don't think he was a Freemason, but he was definitely a deist and Enlightenment thinker. You know, you obviously the colonies themselves, a lot of their state constitutions, well, they weren't states at the time, they were colonies, you know, had a lot of like religious themes, and, you know, you had to be a believer to hold office, or, you know, confess Jesus. But all of those state constitutions became null and void the second that the federal constitution became the law of the land. And those principles themselves were not found. I mean, if you want to say that it was founded on Christian principles, the country itself, I would ask you to go to the founding documents and show me where it says that, and show me where it says that this country, and what Christian principles were those specifically. Show me.
It's not there.
No. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Where's that? Where's that in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
It's not.
Interesting.
So, I mean, and then getting away from that, and then you got these forever revolutionaries on the left that can't ever, it's like they're always trying to fight for something, always some injustice, which, you know, we're not perfect. And I think every generation it becomes incumbent upon us to move the idea of what our country is closer to reality, whether abolishing slavery or now. It seems like, I'm really glad that SCOTUS made the decision they had today. I don't even know why we would revisit that. Why would you try to what are you going to do with all the gay people that have been married?
Right.
and the sad part is there was
Disrupt their lives for what?
Yeah, and the sad part is there are so many Christians out there that would have happily gone along with that. And it's like, this isn't a theocracy.
Yeah.
You don't get to use your religion to establish law and to control other people's lives. And, we can even go into abortion. I'm very, for myself, pro-life. If I was a woman and got pregnant, I don't think I would be able to have an abortion. I would see it as, life or whatever, but I'm very pro-choice for other people because who am I to tell you what to do with your body? Now, obviously, I don't think we should be aborting babies at 9 months.
Yeah.
I think that's disgusting. But I think within
6
reason.
6 months, 9 months, all that stuff.
I think within reason. I think within the first couple months.
I think before it has a heartbeat.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big believer in.
And
I don't understand why we can't come as a country to like some common ground on that.
Yeah.
Like a heartbeat.
Well, and that's the thing is like we don't have the science to tell like when this is like a viable human and when it's not. I think we do. I think we just don't want to say. And I think it's pretty early. And so I think once there's a heartbeat, I don't think that we should be killing it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of, I think we have a lot of like, you got like Dearborn, Michigan, you got a lot of Islamic extremism popping up over here too. So it's like, it's scary. You have the country being ripped in all these different directions and it seems like they're ripping it from the standard of what it was actually.
That's what happens though when you swing the pendulum too hard.
Yeah.
Because it always swings back.
And I'm hoping it stops in the middle this time.
Yeah. But energy is forever moving. It never is sitting still. So I don't think it will. I think we're going to go extreme, 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 extreme.
Well, it definitely does seem to be going in one direction. And it doesn't seem to be getting better anytime soon, especially with this whole Charlie Kirk thing, which is still mind-boggling to me, the whole thing.
I don't believe any of it.
I don't either.
You're not going to tell me that kid killed Charlie Kirk.
No,
not when he turned down $150 billion from Netanyahu.
Yeah,
and
that's been my guess from the very beginning. I've come to two conclusions: either he was pissing BB off a little too much, and they've already lost Tucker. They've already lost Candace.
You see all this stuff come out about Jeffrey Epstein, about how he helped this Israeli deal go through.
Yeah.
And so now we know, okay, that came out and it's like guaranteed, found the emails, yada, yada, yada. So now he was working with Mossad.
Right.
Period.
Well, Les Wexner.
Right here in Ohio.
Les Wexner, his name is all over buildings all over Columbus, and it makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, and Epstein lived in his backyard.
Lived in his
mini
guest
mansion,
house, guest house. And that guest house was like originally built for like, I want to say $400,000 or $800,000, one of the two. And when Jeffrey Epstein took power of attorney for Les Wexner back in the 90s.
Which makes sense why.
Was it back in was either in the 90s or the
why
early 2000s?
Why does that make sense?
Who knows? Because he was his bankroll. He was bankroll.
Why does that other than that, why does it make sense?
He was the piggy bank.
Why do you give him the largest apartment in Manhattan for free?
Well, why?
No exchange of
funds. And especially when it seems like these people are working on behalf of a foreign government. It's like how deeply embedded is this in our country? Are they that deep in Utah that they could make something like that happen?
And then we could go into AIPAC and how much money they spend on getting people elected.
I'll never support another politician that takes a dime from AIPAC.
No, and we shouldn't, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that Gen Z is really holding the current administration's feet to the fire. Because
you see all the Charlie Kirk, the Turning Point USA talks, and then who was it? It was Eric Trump and his wife were up there, and the kid came up and just asked him straight away, and
the looks on their face, they're like,
yeah,
how do I even answer this?
He's like, Jewish donors have given your father $250 billion, and this, and the pressure from Bibi Netanyahu, and what are we going to do about this? And they just kind of skirted around it with some things about how good the country's doing, yada, yada, yada. But people want to know.
Well, wouldn't it be something if, given, all the conspiracies surrounding 9/11, I don't think most people really believe that narrative either.
Yeah.
I think obviously the CIA and Mossad were likely involved in that. If you've ever done any research in that.
I think 9/11, they ignored a lot of stuff and just let it happen.
I think airplanes may have been involved or could have been involved? Yes. But I don't.
I think there's too much footage to say they weren't. But I think there were other things at play also.
Well, I definitely think that there was controlled demolitions, because how else do you explain Building 7?
I gotta pee.
So,
And we're back.
so what were we talking about? Jeffrey Epstein?
No, we're talking about Building 7.
Oh, Building 7. Yeah, I definitely think there was, I mean, obviously you'd have to say that there was some sort of controlled demolition. That thing didn't just fall down by itself.
Even on the other buildings. Like, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
look at footage from the other buildings and you see, like, implosions happening, like, coming out of the side of the building. And it's like, yeah. Well,
It could have been a combination of the two. Could they have crashed buildings into a plane, or crashed planes into a building and detonated them? I've seen interviews from this guy on his deathbed saying that they were actually the planes were holograms. And
I've seen that.
And I'm like, well, how do you know? Maybe
don't
they
know.
were. You have no idea what technology that the government literally hoards technology so they can use it against you. There's a reason why we have UFOs and they don't tell you about them.
There's a reason,
so they can use them.
The reason the government is becoming a big part of, like, OpenAI and all those things right now.
What do you mean?
Like, the government's giving them subsidies and, you know, letting them buy in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The future is definitely heavily AI.
But, you know, should the government be involved? Yes, to keep a thumb on it and make sure it doesn't go crazy.
Well,
but how many times
there has to be some sort of
how many
oversight.
times has the government done things and then used it against us?
Well, the government
record?
Inherently isn't the problem. It's the corrupt people manipulating the government. You know, the government, the country itself is totally at.
And this is why we should have term limits.
Absolutely.
We should have no insider trading. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to trade.
We shouldn't even have this conversation. We shouldn't be having this conversation. These are common sense things. Like
common sense things.
Absolutely.
They shouldn't have been getting paid while the government shut down.
You can't convince me. You might call me a radical for this, but you can't convince me that this country is not wealthy enough to take care of everybody medically, no matter who you are.
Absolutely.
If it was being run correctly, if you are a tax-paying American that works and pays taxes, you should be able to walk into any hospital in this country.
Congress literally said last week there was $500 million every 2 to 3 weeks being sent to an NGO. 500 million every 2 to 3 weeks sent to an NGO. Now, what could that do for people? 500 million every 2 to 3 weeks. And who knows how long.
Yeah.
But they're just wasting money. They're feeding the pockets.
We've become the world's piggy bank.
They're feeding the pockets of their friends and themselves. Because they get in on the deal and they're like, yeah, I'll send this money over there.
They find themselves and they seat themselves in these little windows of corruption. And
there's no checks and balances.
Well, even if you look at the state of Ohio, I mean, I personally think Ohio is the most corrupt red state in the nation.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why?
I mean, you could say it's a little, but it is a red state. But in the inner cities, you got these 3 big inner cities, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, all ran by corrupt Democrats. And then on the state level, you've got Mike DeWine, who is obviously corrupt, who's been in politics his entire life. His entire career has been.
He creeps me out.
He reminds me of that little evil leprechaun in the 90s. He gives me that, like, I'm
always a trust your gut kind of person.
You can just send, and he's got like a school in Haiti with his, I'm sorry. No,
Oprah had a school in Haiti.
No American politician has enough interest in Haiti to have a school in Haiti unless you're doing some shady shit with kids. I'm sorry.
If you know anything, if you follow politics, deeply, then nothing good has come out of Haiti when it comes to us having our fingers in it.
Oh yeah.
It's all been bad for those people.
Like, anytime a politician has anything like that going on outside of the United States, I'm like, what are your interests there?
Yeah, we still have homeless people in Columbus and surrounding cities. So, what are you doing?
I don't know.
Yeah,
something's got to change. Something's got to change quick because we're going down a one-way path. It seems, and I
think the answer, lo and behold, is for younger people to run for office.
I agree.
Younger people that like you know what I mean. We're sitting here and we're talking about all these things.
I think more millennials need to get involved also. I think millennials is a really unique generation. I think growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, I think we bridged the gap of like technology. I remember I didn't even have a Facebook till I was a senior in high school. So like we were like the first generation to grow up and bridge that gap of like the social media.
Not all millennials are created equal though. We need like the ones that will actually work, that will like be the first one there and the last one to leave type work. Like really grind to make sure that everything happens.
Well, I think the strength of millennials is I think that they grew up in a time where they just tend to drift more towards the center and just like more common sense ideas. And like, I don't think that you won't find many dogmatic, like super fundamental religious millennials. They're out there for sure. But I think the majority of millennials kind of have like this very center of the aisle, very libertarian kind of.
But I would prefer them to have some kind of cutoff to as like their liberalism goes. Like, I don't want you to just let everything be everything,
Oh yeah, like
there is a line to draw.
Obviously, I think every child growing up in this country should know that if they're gay, it's okay. But that doesn't mean we need to be turning every classroom into a battleground and having pride flags in every classroom.
Yeah, and just because you're gay doesn't mean you're trans.
Right.
We
Absolutely.
need to define that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know how I feel about the trans thing. I think it's just a symptom of reincarnation. But I think if more people, more kids, or even more people in general just were spiritual and understood these things, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah, I think if homosexuality was accepted in all of its forms, because it is a very, it's got many different colors. You know what I mean? There's some homosexuals you'd never know. There are some that are very effeminate. And I think that if it was
there's
accepted,
a whole group of homosexuals out there that aren't out of the closet, who have wives and kids and, live a fake life because they grew up in probably very religious, fundamentalist, and can pass.
Yeah.
Like I could have easily walked that line and passed, and, nobody would have probably ever questioned me.
And I think, but like the trans thing, I think that, I know a lot of trans people that seem to be having a great life.
Good for them.
Yeah, and I'm happy for them. Do I know what goes on behind the scenes? No. But from my own experience, I probably can assume, there's something.
I would say, and this might be a little controversial, and it doesn't mean to pass judgment on anybody who might identify as trans. I definitely try to exercise compassion and non-judgment. But I think the way I look at it is I could be in a room full of people, all straight people, and me as the only gay man, and they can all leave, and I don't need their affirmation. I will still be gay at the end of the day. Nothing's going to change that. But if you're a transgender person and you're in a room full of 99 people that all affirm your identity is you're not a man, you're a woman, and they all walk out of the room, are you still a man? Are you still a woman? Which one is it? Is your whole entire identity being held up by other people? Is it contingent on other people holding it up for you?
Their approval.
Yeah, like when you have to sit with yourself and you have to look in the mirror, who's still there?
Mm-hmm.
When you're by yourself and nobody's there to affirm that identity for you? Is it still authentically you? Like you said earlier, you sat with yourself and you realized that it wasn't. Maybe that's not the same for everybody, but I think that plays a lot into it. I think if more gay people, especially because, trans people gravitate towards the gay community, and you have a lot of gay people that are like encourage them, before asking any questions, like, hey, wait, before you go taking puberty blockers or before you go, getting chest surgery or doing it, have you maybe looked into this? Have you thought about spirituality? Have you done, just offering another.
Have you got to know yourself?
Yeah, like before just going, hey, yeah, take these drugs, go chop your boobs off, and.
Well, and I think transgenderism.
It's sad. It's and you can't take that back once you do it.
Transgenderism is glamorized and glorified in a way that it never has been before. So, the minute somebody turns trans, like back in my day, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? You had to grind and you had to go through Walmart and be passable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how you got the approval of, the clique or the group, is you had to
well, like you
look
said earlier,
the part.
You said you were looking for an identity.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for kids growing up today, with all of these different identities, and it seems like
I know
everybody's just on a journey to find a label for themselves.
You can be a cat if you want to.
Yeah. It's or even when it comes to a belief system, people are always looking for what am I? Am I a Christian? Am I a Protestant? Am I a Catholic? Am I a Gnostic?
Well, and and then the Charlie Kirk thing happens, and then there's a whole another uprising of people gravitating towards his way of life, Christianity, because of the message behind all that.
Even within Christianity, there are so many Christians are so different.
Yeah.
Like, I was just at a church a couple weeks ago, and I'll even read you it blew my mind when my old high school music teacher, which I'm supposed to be there doing tonight, but I skipped out to come do this. He's doing like a music program at a church.
Just send him the episode.
At a church in Bexley. And when I walked in, I saw this beautiful picture, and it was just like, not everybody is like, not all churches are like this. Let me find it.
This has been a good episode, by the way.
Like I said, I've never done anything like this, but I've always been really wanting to do podcasts, but I think that there would be a lot of people interested to watch this.
Yeah.
Why am I not finding this picture?
So interesting that I was just looking for podcast guests, and then you sent me a message, and here we are.
Well, yeah, and the day worked out perfectly, too, it being the Marine Corps birthday and tomorrow being Veterans Day.
I know.
Oh, no.
I love that it worked out like that. I love our military. I have many family members that have served in the military. My grandpa just passed away, served in the Air Force. Was a helicopter mechanic.
Oh, well, I can't find it. I'll show you after. But it was basically just like, it basically was like, all are welcome here. It doesn't matter, if you're gay, straight, black, white, whatever, like everybody is affirmed and, you're loved. And it's like, in keeping in the tradition and the followings of Jesus Christ, everyone is welcome here, regardless of your age, sexual orientation, whatever your identity is affirmed. And I just thought that was really beautiful. And today's, it's like, because you get, especially if you just like exist on the internet and all the social media, you get one view of it, and then you like go out into the real world and you're like, oh wow, actually it's not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, in the church I go to, it's right down the street, and it's Redeeming Passion Ministries, RPM, yes. And I just started going there like right the week before Charlie Kirk got shot. And I started going there, and then he got shot, and then I was like, oh, might have been right place, right time. And I love it. It's good. Like, the music is good. It's live, and, everybody's lively. But then there's, like, just moments of, like, I don't know. It feels good, but it feels commanding. And, like, not flowing. It's not like that every time. And it may be just a unique message that's like punching me in the gut, you don't know.
Well, I think for a lot of people, maybe they do need a place or like other people to go just to have, that sense of that connection. There's something bigger than themselves. And it's good that, as long as people are accepting to you, obviously I think that's extremely important. The thing that I have the problem with the most is when, like, a lot of fundamentalist Christians, they seem like they like guard the well, this like spiritual well. And it's like, you can't drink here. You can't sit with us.
They're not like that.
No, but a lot of, it's like, well, you just want us to celebrate sin. We're not going to celebrate sin. And I'm like, regardless, that's the sort of stuff that like really bothers me. It's like, I look at a lot of the things that are going on in the gay community, or a lot of the struggles that people go through, or a lot of men leading double lives. I attribute that to the homophobic reality that we live in. Mm-hmm. If people felt more like they were able to live their lives authentically and be themselves, you wouldn't have all this stuff happening.
Yeah. Do you think though? Like, I think about.
That's not the only.
I think about some like homosexuality that takes place, and
it just causes so much unnecessary damage to me. Like, you're like, this religion, or even Abrahamic faiths, have been around for 2,000 years ish. I mean, there's historic evidence that gays have been around way before the Bible.
Yeah, I do know that. I've seen the evidence
in, like,
of that.
ancient samurai and like Buddhist and Hindu and Shintoism.
Well, like the other night, I
heard
heard Joe Rogan talking about the like soldiers, or like the guys that went into battle would go with their lovers because they would fight harder.
Who?
And so
samurai?
I'm trying to think. It might have been samurai or something like that.
I know what you're talking about. I've heard of this. It's like an ancient Greek.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about.
And so they would go into battle with their lovers.
It's to act like, this 2,000-year-old religion is like, the absolute truth of all of reality and the story of humanity is, to me, is just is supremely arrogant. And if you can't look at other people and see that some of the damage that it does to them, then you lack the very thing that the person that is the focus of your religion teaches, which is compassion and non-judgment.
Yeah.
I've tried to be very heartfelt with people before and be like, look, I felt this way since I was a child. And a lot of the things that was said to me in church was very abusive and traumatizing to me. It's abuse. It is abuse no matter which way. And they just don't see it that way because they cloak themselves in this religious virtue. Well, this is the word of God and this is what he says. And it's like, no, God didn't write this and neither did Jesus. Neither of them wrote this. This was written by people. And you just can't get people to see past that. Like there's this disconnect. They just insist that it's the word of God because the Bible itself says it's the word of God. It's like, okay, well, that's circular reasoning. It doesn't work.
You grew up in church. I didn't.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I grew up in church. Like I would say when I went to that Christian school, I was in church every day, and like I would go to youth group. And
see, I never
when
went
I was
to,
younger,
I
we
never,
did go to church. But.
Like I may have like dipped my toes and stuff like that when I went with like my cousin Mandy or something, but like it was never a constant in my life. I never had that embedded in me. And so living my life the way that I did, growing up the way that I did, and then moving into adulthood and doing the whole like transgenderism thing and like addicted to drugs, getting off drugs, and then getting into the life that I have now. Like, God has performed so many miracles in my life just from me going within myself and speaking to my spirit, my soul, and the God that I know is within me. And now I listen. Like, I just resigned from my job last Monday because I was like, I have to do creative things more. So I'm going to go bartend. I'm going to, do my studio. That's it. And I'm involved in a lot of other things. But I heard that whisper. And, like, it was showing up in my life, and I'm like, got to do this. So you just pull the trigger and do it.
I'm the same way.
But I didn't have church, so I don't have, like the Christian belief that, that's only going to happen through church and going to church every day. I know that happens with sitting with myself and the stillness of myself with God speaking to me. I know that's where that happens, and it's happened every single time.
Well, the problem with that is I don't think there's anything wrong with praying, but if you're always just sitting down praying to somebody else without listening, you'll never really hear God because you're not going to listen to yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're constantly always like praying to something out there rather than sitting within and like sitting with yourself and listening to what that inner divinity tells you, you're not going to really truly understand or see reality for what it is. And you don't see that interconnectedness between all things. And you separate yourself from that when you're looking out there. It's not to say, like, when we're getting into, like, the Yahweh and the Jesus thing, it's like, yes, the earth was created, and yes, these bodies were created, but that's not the same as, like, the source, all prime source. That doesn't directly, there has to be beings in between us and that source that are responsible for, like, this physical reality that we're living in and inhabiting. I don't think that the prime creative source, that our consciousness, like that piece of us that never dies, that's not what's responsible for creating this planet, this school that we're living in and incarnating in. It was like some demigod or being in between, which is kind of like what I put like Yahweh in that. Jesus, when he came in, he was teaching what we've been sitting here talking about, that the kingdom is within you, and that you don't need a preacher. And like we've already went down that road. But yeah, I think, and I see a lot of people in the spiritual community speaking up more and more, and there's like this clash going on between, is God, as we like to say, sky daddy, or is God within you? It's like this big debate on, and it's like, well, yeah, there was being, and it's really, to me, it's just an argument over a misunderstanding of these demigod alien beings coming in and presenting themselves as God to humans that didn't know any better. And this is just the leftover stories from what happened to them, though. Who knows? Did they leave? Are they secretly manipulating the planet still behind the scenes?
Yeah, interesting.
Who knows?
I think that, I simplify everything because that's how my brain needs it. And I just think that God is everything, everywhere. If
I look at it more like the Force.
I think God is everywhere, everything, at all times, just like they say. But I think God is energy. Yeah. Because if you study physics, energy is, always vibrating at a frequency, and there are different frequencies for every emotion. And I think God is that powerful love emotion.
Yeah, and the more that you incorporate the teachings of Jesus into your life, you raise your vibrational frequency
Yes.
into the high frequency of that God consciousness, that Christ
Yeah,
consciousness,
peace and serenity and love.
whether it's not being promiscuous, not being lustful, like
Yes.
those deadly sins, and when you start to look at those things like, well, no, yeah, you don't want to go around having sex with a bunch of people. That's gross. You don't want to sit on the couch all day stuffing your face with ice cream. That's gross. You don't want to lay around all day that's gross. You don't want to kill anybody. That's gross. You shouldn't be jealous of people.
Yeah, I believe we all have an internal compass where we all know right from wrong.
Yeah.
It's innate within us.
It's like the Abraham Lincoln quote. Somebody asked him what his religion was. He says, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. Which he was a religious person. I think that, somebody in his stature in the position he was in, he was
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, he was just very careful. Like a lot of presidents typically are like,
Yeah.
you don't see Donald Trump coming out very much talking about his personal beliefs. I think a lot of presidents try to be very careful when they go out talking about, what their faith is.
But that's solid though. You
Well,
do
yeah.
good, you feel good. You do
Yeah.
bad, you feel bad. And it's, the whole karma thing. It's like when you do bad things and we have that innate compass within us, it's bad. And so, something is there. You know what I mean? It's lingering in your consciousness. And if really, they say if it can exist in your mind, it can exist in your hand. Okay. You have to think of all the great ideas before you build them. And so if that is truly how it is, and I believe that's how it works, everybody's done it that's invented anything cool, then if you're doing something bad, that's going to haunt you a little bit. And you're going to think about it a lot. When you killed so-and-so. And eventually, a tree's going to fall on you. Or, you're going to have your dose of karma.
Oh, I definitely believe in karma, 100%. I've seen it in my own life.
Yeah. So I think it's very simple. I think it is very simple.
It would make sense that there are laws, universal laws. Like what I was saying earlier, like, there's my truth, your truth, and then there's the truth. Like there's there has to be universal laws. There are things that just happen. And it would make sense that there's a karmic hand on everything. If you've studied near-death experiences, I've studied hundreds of near-death experiences, and there's like common themes with all of them, and there's something called
there's a consistency.
Yeah, there's something that you go through what's called the life review. And it's when you come into knowing that your God isn't judging you. You're judging yourself because you are a piece of God and you're full knowing. Mm-hmm. And you go through basically a replay of your life.
Forced to look at what you've done.
Yeah, you do a replay of your life and you experience everything from everybody else's perspective that you did to them. So everything good that you did and the way that you made them feel and how you affected them, you'll feel that. If you did something terrible to somebody, you'll feel that. So if you lived a really terrible life going around murdering people, when you die, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have all that done back to you.
Yeah.
So it's not, will it be a sense of hell? Yes, but nobody's going to go to a burning lake of fire for all of eternity. And, that's just a scare tactic that was made up by the church to keep people in line. Scared people are easier to control. It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah, I don't believe that. When you
not only that, but no good relationship is based in coercion. If you have to scare somebody into your belief system, it's likely not true or based in love at all.
It's an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's an abusive relationship. I remember being in church as a kid and the pastor standing up there saying, "Our God is a jealous God," and I knew right then.
I hear that too, and I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah, and again, this is why I equate Yahweh to like some sort of demigod or an alien, because that's not a character. A God couldn't be all-knowing and all-loving and be jealous. Yeah. That's not possible.
Yeah.
This is why critical thinking is important when you're studying the Bible and studying these religious texts, because if you don't understand allegory and you're not capable of discernment, then this could lead you down a dangerous path. And it's the same with all religions, like the Islamic extremism.
People are going to be praying for me after this episode.
Oh God.
But that's okay.
I get told all the time, I'm going to pray for you. And I'm like, oh, don't waste your time, but that's okay.
I accept all prayers.
Well, I mean, for
Shoot
me, it's
my
like,
way.
What are you praying for? You're praying for me essentially to drop everything that I stand on and to bow down to what you believe.
Yeah.
That's what you're praying for. You're praying for me, what it seems like. You're praying for my spiritual slavery. You want me to forgo my inner divinity, submit to this certain belief, live free of sin, which would be not to live my authentic self and not to be gay, and to either abstain,
if gay is a sin,
right, to abstain from being with a partner or knowing or feeling love. That makes no sense. What would be the point of even living?
Yeah, I don't know. It's you came all the way here from Columbus,
Yeah.
So you're in a small town right now, And, being gay in a small town, it's not like it used to be. When I grew up, our high school, we didn't have any gay people. We had, like maybe one.
Well, that's the thing. There's always gay people. It's just which ones are they?
Yeah.
Are
But
they?
out
Yeah,
gay.
right.
We had like maybe one, so it wasn't accepted. And so it was very shameful and very, you just didn't do that. And so it was difficult to realize who you really were. Because you're like, oh, there ain't nothing like me around. There's no example. So, yeah, it's interesting living here in rural Ohio and then being involved in all the things I'm involved in. And then,
Yeah, I mean, I stay pretty involved too. I mean, I'm in my high school board, alumni board. Obviously involved with Freemasonry. I try to, involve myself as much as I can without overdoing myself. But like I don't have kids, I'm single, so it's just me and my dog mostly. Yeah. So I try to stay busy, try to get back to the community. Also, I just have always, once I realized that I was gay, I just always wanted to try to be myself despite that. You know what I mean? Like not like, cause I would see the gay community and I'm like, I'm not like those people. I'm not like that. And, like now I feel really homeless even to this day. Cause like, I don't go to gay clubs. I don't go to gay bars. I don't have many gay friends. Like I just am not into that, like promiscuous drinking all the time. It's just not me. I'm 37. I'm like, even in my younger 20s, that wasn't really my scene. So I always just was like, I just am going to stay being myself. I want to be a Marine. I want to do these things. I want to be, I never let that stigma of what it means to be gay stop me from just being myself and doing what I wanted to do.
That's good. That's good. I was in the club scene. I was in all that stuff, and it's it's a hamster wheel.
Or even like standing up for my political beliefs, like the amount of shit I've gotten over the years from the gay community for being a Trump supporter. It's not been easy. So it's like I get it from both sides. Yeah. I'll still stand up for them whenever you have people coming at them with because to me that's like spiritual and religious tyranny. It's abuse. Like, so I'm always going to stand up against that. And, if me standing up against that is attacking Christianity, I know a lot of people feel like that's the case. And I'm like, well, no, that's not the case, because where the people, the abolitionists using the Bible to fight against slavery, was that attacking Christianity? No, I'm just standing up for a group of people who you don't understand what it feels like to be on that side of judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult, And
I think it's just important for like more gay men like myself and you to be not out here like, but hey, we're here too, and this ain't right, and we will stand up and we will speak our piece on it too. And if you don't like it, get over it. I had to get over sitting in church for years with you guys telling me I was going to burn in hell. So
I see myself as a bridge. I'm like a bridge human. Like I talk to people from everywhere, every walk of life, and I love that about myself. And I don't think we should hide from that. There's got to be people like us. If there are extreme people, like some of those people out there, then there has to be people like us too to mend those relationships and to bring people back to a common ground.
Well, yeah, I mean, gay people don't just pop up in liberal families; they pop up in conservative families too. And it's like, I always looked at it's like a lesson to learn. It's like, hey, these people exist everywhere. It doesn't matter what your family beliefs are. It doesn't matter none of that matters. They still I popped up in a conservative family. I know many men who are in conservative families, and it's because of that. It's a very specific reason. It's because they grew up in a very traditional conservative family that holds religious beliefs that will not accept them. And we're still in 2025, and people don't realize that there's still a whole community of men out there, and maybe even lesbians, that will not come out of the closet because they are in very religious fundamental family units.
Yeah, it's very much a real thing.
It is. I know for a fact.
Yeah, it's sad.
I mean, I don't do the gay dating apps anymore, but even then, when you would get on them, you'd see DL married, DL married, DL married, half of them. And I'm like, these guys are married with kids, and their wives have no idea that they're out here messing around with men on the side and then going home with them.
Yeah.
It's gross. And why is that happening? Why are they so afraid to just live their authentic life? Maybe they got to find Jesus.
Is that what did it for us? Jesus.
Well, I could say that Jesus saved me in a totally different way. When I sat with myself and truly tried to understand as a spiritual person who Jesus was, what I got, and I'm not going to say Jesus popped in my head and I heard his voice. That's not the way it works. It's like you get like a sense or an understanding, and it was more of like, why would I put this in your heart to turn around and punish you for it?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with you.
Hearing the voice of God is, it's a feeling.
Yeah. It's like you are made whole. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. There's nothing for me to change. Once you look in and you see, because you are me, you are of me, you are made perfectly just as you are. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And it was just like, don't forget that the people that claim to follow me or worship me aren't as petty as I am. So, and that's what stuck with me. It's like when you truly try to understand the reality that we exist in, and love and hate and fear and all these different things. What it really boils down to at the end of the day is, are you happy and content with yourself? Like, you're the one that has to look in the mirror at the end of the day, and you're the one that has to, I went through a really rough time, always thinking that, like, people are worried about me and my life and what I'm doing, and always worried about how I appear. And all of a sudden, I sat down with myself. I'm like, well, do you sit around and think about other people like that? And I'm like, well, no. I'm like, well, stop thinking that other people are sitting around thinking. Because they're not. They don't, people don't give a shit.
I used to get in my head like that all the time, and still sometimes I'll find myself wandering off there, and I'm like, hey, nobody gives a shit about you.
Yeah.
Live your life.
And I mean, I feel a lot of pressure a lot of times, like, especially because I feel like we're in like a spiritual revolution right now, like big time. Like and I try to stand firm on what I believe and things that, without trying to be, I guess, an arrogant asshole, but sometimes I can come across like that regardless. But I still will sit down and have a conversation like this with anybody. Like, hey, this is why I believe this. This is where I'm getting this from. A lot of times that gets lost in translation, especially through text over the internet, and people kind of can get the wrong impression of you.
The internet can make you an asshole real fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always been a very controversial, divisive individual. I identify with Trump on that. There are people that love me, and there are people that despise me.
I block all the ones that despise me.
I just went through a blocking phase.
Yeah. I don't pay any attention to them. I'm like, you don't have to keep those people around. Like,
well, because you realize I'm not going to change. I tried the compassionate path of like, hey, like, this is my story. This is how I felt since I was a kid. Like, this is what happened to me. This is the trauma that it's caused me. It's caused loneliness. It's caused X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And still at the end of the day, they're like, well, it's still a sin. And it's like, nothing is going to reach through to you to get like you are just so, like, you're not worshiping Jesus, you're worshiping this. You're worshiping a book written by people.
Yeah, you're never going to convince some people, It's so ingrained in them.
And it's like, I'm not telling you to betray your entire faith or your belief system. I'm just saying, hey, use some discernment when you're reading some of these texts and think that perhaps maybe they're not all true, and look at the damage that they cause to people. And exercise some compassion.
When you built your whole life around that, though, and you've raised on that, and you grew up on that, and you've lived your life on that, and it's worked for you, it's very hard for people to go against that. Just like it's hard for you and I to go against the fact that, reaching within ourselves, sitting alone with ourselves and really letting, God kind of put a message to us about how we should live our lives and just be ourselves. Nobody can tell us any different.
But do you know what I'm not doing? I'm not standing outside of churches with signs trying to cram my beliefs down their throat. That's what I'm not doing. And what bothers me a lot is, that's
a good point.
Yeah. And it's like, you can't go to a gay parade. You can't go to any sort of gay event without, most of the time, there being some sort of like Christian activist there holding up signs, sin, hell, you're just antagonizing. And it's
I will say some of those gay events, a little cringe for me.
Absolutely.
I don't want to see
at
naked.
At the same time, like, it wouldn't matter. They would still be there, regardless of whether there was, people walking, whatever. I'm not even, trust me, I don't like it either. It's like you've turned something that was meant to be about love into sexual fetishes, and it has done a lot of damage. And you've basically, like, given them all of the reasons to
hate us.
Yeah, like, look, see, they're being.
That's why it's hard to be involved.
Yeah. Because, like, how I'm, like, trying to
when
stand up and defend these
like
people.
Orphan, I get
like,
that.
How can I defend you But like I said, it goes back to that, like, well, you can't sit with us. They're like guarding the spiritual well. And like, gay people don't want to be around be around religious people if they think they're going to, like, I don't want to be around people like that.
Well, I mean, the stories through time, they condemn you. So why would you go around people that are going to automatically
it just
hate
automatically pushes a lot of people in that community away from God or spirituality and into that sort of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That is a lifestyle. Their sexuality isn't the lifestyle. The choices that they are making, having these huge sex like that's really rampant and gross in the gay community. I see it all the time. Or just like going out to these clubs and getting so drunk, like the gay clubs that they serve the whole damn drinks like alcohol. You know what they're doing. They're trying to get people really drunk. It's just like this sort of, and the sexual assault and some of the stuff that goes on in the gay community, the roofing. I remember I had a friend that he lives out in Bell Fountain, and he was like, he said there was a new gay club that popped up, and I was like, don't go, especially because he was a very, very attractive, like middle-aged older guy. And he ended up getting roofied, just like I said. I was like, see? And that's the kind of stuff that happens, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. Makes you
guys do yourselves no favors, and you're not doing me any favors either.
That's another reason I like small-town Ohio.
Yeah.
There's not many gay people out here, so they don't want this.
But it also sucks if you're trying to date.
Yeah, not really, though.
Yeah. Dating's hard.
My focus is, like, doing things in the community, making the world a better place.
I gave up on dating, actually. I was like, it's a disaster that trying to find somebody like myself on these gay dating apps is never going to happen.
They say when you're not looking for it is when you'll find it.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, I'm just going to stop, and hopefully it'll just find me one of these days. Hopefully I don't get too old before it does.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't worry about it, sex is not that important. It's like,
I mean, obviously we all want it, but
yeah, but once
I feel like I've become so desensitized to it from the gay community, honestly, that it's really not that big of a deal to me anymore either.
Yeah.
More just wanting to find somebody to share my life with,
that's it. You see really other people like
the sex is
traveling together and things like that. That's when you want it. Like,
and it sucks. It's like you see like happy straight couples all the time, and you're like, oh, it must have been so easy for you. Like, it's like, you have no idea.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to being envious, and I do. I'm like, it's just, first, you got to overcome the hurdle of just being okay with yourself, and then you got to overcome the hurdle of trying to find somebody, and then that you're actually attracted to, and that has that has some of the same morals as you do, and that's very difficult.
It is.
It's very, very difficult. Or you finally do find somebody, like, then they don't want to be with you because they only date girls.
Yeah,
that's been the number one like knife in my heart.
They only date girls. Wait a minute.
Or the bisexual guys.
Okay, so like
closeted. The ones that like obviously they're gay, but they're straight passing. So they will get with girls, have their family, and then on the side they'll be on their little gay dating apps and hooking up with men on the side while their wife has no idea.
Yeah. That's shitty.
It is. It's crazy.
Yeah. See? It's easier to be single.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just fill your schedule full of like
That's what I try to do. I'm a big gamer too. I play a lot of video games. I play bass.
What a loser. God, I can't handle this. But all these kids play video games and
I have been a diehard gamer since I was in diapers.
Oh Jesus,
Sega
Lord.
Genesis. Oh yes.
No wonder your brain's rotten. I just can't do it. I don't know. I can't. I don't know, but you probably say the same thing about me watching like motivational speeches 24/7.
I like motivational speeches,
but my whole life. My whole life is.
In my spare time though, like, because I can't just like I'll be playing a video game and I'll have my laptop open, watching YouTube videos. But typically, I'm watching American history, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. The founders, and that's typically the stuff that really interests, especially like the Civil War, Revolutionary War, those battles, things like that. Those are the things that really interest me the most.
That's good. What's your favorite game?
My favorite game of all time is a game called Xenogears. And it actually, it's not a shocker at all. This game is...
To me, it sounds Chinese because I don't even...
Japanese.
I have no... Oh,
it's Japanese.
See? So, look at me.
Yeah, well, I'm also like super obsessed with Japanese culture. I even speak a little Japanese. I worked in like a fine dining Japanese restaurant for a couple years in Columbus called a Kaihana. I like trained under like hardcore Japanese sushi chefs. And then a couple years after I got done managing Cameron Mitchell restaurants, I went back, but I worked in their ramen shop in the mornings, like rolling like rice balls and doing different things, cooking different dishes that they would sell in their market in Tensuke Market. But wait, Xenogears, it's basically rooted in like Gnostic Christianity, really, which is funny when he comes back around. But I'm not going to dive too much into Xenogears, but it just has themes of like reincarnation and all of these really heavy themes that I was introduced to as a young kid that really broadened my mind, that I didn't really go back and look into and like connect the dots till later in life when I was like played it more. And I'm like, man, this is really weird. Like this game is like encapsulating a lot of the things that I think are the themes that could be happening on the planet right now with like, again, it would be
too
way
many
too much.
fucking video games.
Well, yeah, and I've always been into like JRPGs, like Final
Do you
Fantasy.
think though that like incarceration, Jesus,
Reincarnation?
yes. Do you think it's real?
Absolutely. I'm not. I don't just think like I'm like 100% convinced.
But
I've
how
had
do you
dreams.
think it happens?
How do I think it happens? What do you mean, like?
I don't know. Like,
so
are we
based
on a schedule to come back as like a butterfly, and then after that you're a deer?
No. My theory, now this is just based on my personal belief. I think that when your spirit or your soul originally separates from the source, like you start off as lower life forms, like probably like who knows? I don't know. Maybe bugs or or whatever. But eventually you inhabit, like I look at my dog and I'm like, there's a soul in my dog's body. And I feel like she's probably about ready to be a human because she's, I feel like
she acts like a human.
Well, I feel like as you inhabit higher bodies of intelligence, or the more lives you live in the lower bodies of intelligence, you can inhabit higher bodies of intelligence. But as far as like reincarnation, I think it's really, you have free will. It's up to you. You choose. Like, it's not like you just get thrown into a body. It's like, hey, I learned this in this life, and during your life review, it's like, okay, well, I need to go back and do this, and maybe I'm going to be a man this time, or maybe I'm going to be a woman this time, or
so
I was this
kind of
person.
like signing up for college. Kinda.
Well, yeah, I think like Earth is like a school, and you're basically like you're a soul. Have you seen that movie? Is it a Disney movie, Soul? Have you seen that?
No.
You should watch it.
Jeez.
It's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of truth. I think they put truth in a lot of these.
I think
movies.
I watched the least amount of movies out of anybody I know.
Huh.
Honestly.
But I think you have free will. I think it's a choice. I think you kind of pre-plan your life. You plan who your partner is going to be. You plan who your parent. You make these agreements with these other souls that you're going to play out this role. You're going to play out this role. And then you incarnate and you do the best you can. You forget, and then after you die, you kind of come back and you're like, oh yeah, I was trying. I wanted to learn this. I wanted to learn this. Did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? And
remember where I told you everything has to be simplified? That seems too fucking complicated.
Well, yeah, maybe.
That seems like a lot of shit that I am not going to keep track of.
And again, like I would encourage you to study some near-death experiences.
I studied a lot of them.
Because it's
interesting.
A lot of near-death experiences say this kind of stuff. Like there's like a life review, and like you pick your parents, and and even there's been tons of cases of kids remembering their past lives, or kids. Like
I've seen a lot of that stuff.
Like kids telling, like this kid telling his mom, like, I remember coming down and into your, like through your head, and I picked you, and da 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 da, and or like a 5-year-old kid that's like a Mozart. He probably was a pianist in his former life.
If you think about it, like you wouldn't have the life you have if you didn't have the parents you have. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and like you meet certain people in your life, or there are certain people that are a part of your life that you just can't imagine like your life without them. Mm-hmm. And you're like, there's something deeper to this. Like I didn't just meet this person on coincidence. So, like there's like this person was meant to be in my life. And I think that goes into that inner, like this was an agreement. Like we're going to play these roles that are like, you were meant to be an important person in my life. It's like, they call them soul groups. It's like different,
I can see that.
Different groups of souls who like know each other, incarnate, and play different roles out over lifetimes.
Yeah. That makes me think.
Yeah, because like I remember watching one where this kid was like, I used to change your diapers. And he was like, and again, like there was a book I read when I was in the Marines called Many Lives, Many Masters. And that was what really got me into reincarnation. It was this psychologist, I think his name is Brian Weiss. And he was doing like past life regression therapy, and he was like regressing these people into like their past lives. And a lot of the things that they were saying, a lot of like the same themes pop up in near-death experiences and are popping up in like these kids remembering their past lives. So it's just like a lot of different common themes that makes it easy for me to kind of solidify myself in the camp of reincarnation as just an aspect, not just, in my own journey of like kind of feeling like, well, where's the homosexuality coming from? It's likely because the first human body I inhabited was probably a female, and I probably lived many lives as a female. And now I'm living lives as a man. And even though I've probably lived a few lives as a man at this point, I'm still innately attracted to men because that's where my soul journey started.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
I don't know. That's just what makes sense to me.
It sounds cool, but but I don't know. I mean,
I think I think life and reality is simple, but I think that there are complexities
it just
to it.
Seems
also,
like
like if you look, like just even look at your hand, look at all like the different little like that's complex to sit here and try to
your iris and your eye.
your body itself is complex. I think
I just think that's a lot of fucking shit to think about, and I just like to flow through life.
I mean, for me, I'm a very curious person, so I have like
Me too.
not
Me
knowing
too.
something for me is like I have to understand this. I have to know this.
I'm very curious too, but I don't need to know the answer to everything.
So so being gay for me, like that was a huge part of my spiritual journey. I'm like, I have to find a reason why this is happening to me. I need to understand it so that I can understand where it's coming from. Like why, like it didn't just happen. Like why is this happening? And when I started studying reincarnation, it made sense. And then the transgender thing, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see, and along with it, just predating the Bible and, cultures have believed in reincarnation for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So
ancient Indian cultures had people
a lot
called
of indigenous cultures.
They had people called two spirit.
Yeah, so
where they
essentially the two
the
spirit
male
is,
and female spirit.
So if you study a lot of these spiritual teachers, they say that the journey of the soul is to become essentially androgynous, where it's like equally masculine and equally feminine. So you have to live an X amount of number of lives as a woman, an X amount of lives as a man to reach that balance.
To be like an evolved spirit.
Well, to be perfectly balanced. So like you can live as many lives as you want as a man, but eventually you're going to hit a ceiling where, you have to live other experiences. So you got to jump into the other body. And that's where I think that.
I just remembered what it's called in the Indian culture. Is
well, that's because they had a deep understanding of the spiritual reality of existence. And they understood that these two spirited people, or these people that were equally masculine or equally feminine, or maybe that they were just likely more spiritually evolved or further on their spiritual path, and they were able to see things from multiple perspectives, not just from a right or a left brain, but somewhere in the middle.
The bridge.
Yeah.
A woman once called me a bodhisattva, which
I've
is
heard that.
Indian culture. It's the Indian god that comes back to Earth, or that stays on Earth and sacrifices going to be with the other gods to help the others.
Have you ever seen Point Break?
No.
With Patrick Swayze?
A fucking movie.
Well, his name in that is Bodhi, and I'm pretty sure that's where his name comes from, was Bodhisattva. Yeah.
Bodhisattva, yeah. It's good.
It's a good movie. If you've never watched it, I highly recommend it. It's Keanu Reeves, Patrick Swayze, great movie.
Bodhi?
Gary Busey. Yeah, so it's a movie about surfers who are bank robbers, and Keanu Reeves is like an FBI agent.
Well, this
who
is good. I like movies like this.
So it actually, in the movie, Keanu Reeves, his character is a Ohio State Buckeye quarterback, Johnny Utah.
Nice.
And so he joins the FBI and he goes out to Southern California to try to crack these bank robberies, and they end up being these surfers. So he has to like infiltrate this surfer crew, and the leader of the crew is Patrick Swayze, Bodhi.
Nice.
It's a phenomenal movie.
Huh. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Well, Randall, I think it was a good talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I came.
Yeah. People are going to find you interesting, find this talk interesting.
Well, it is what it is. I don't mind being controversial, and I
don't even think it's controversial.
Well, not controversial, but I just am to a point where in my life where I don't give one iota of a shit how crazy I look to people. I just don't.
That's a good place to be.
I just don't.
That's a very good place to
Yeah,
be.
I've been through so much. My time in the Marines was crazy, and a lot of the heartbreak and backstabbing and just a lot of the things that happened to me and the things I've been through. Like I've been torn down and rebuilt myself in so many times that I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I literally don't.
I think we have that in common, and you got to quit caring.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people follow me online because they see how boldly I live, and I just don't care. You know, I live a good life. I do good things, and if you don't like it, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I've tried to speak up a little bit more lately, especially like after the Charlie Kirk thing. It's like, cause I've always been one of those gay guys that I don't care if you accept me or not. I don't need to cram my sexuality down your throat. That's not my mission, but I will stand up and defend, you know, a group of people that I feel like are being spiritually persecuted, because I think it's disgusting. And I don't think these people really truly understand the damage that they do to innocent people when they do it. So that's just really where I'm coming from with that. And if I can use my knowledge and the things that I've learned to help me through my struggle, which I don't necessarily say the things I say to change anybody's mind. It's more for people who are going through what I went through, and to say, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with you. You know, there are other explanations for this. You're not going to burn in hell. You're not sinful for, you know, your innate attraction. And that's really why I've been more vocal and more bold as far as, you know, my sexuality. And I just want people to know that, like, there are gay people out here who don't fit those stereotypes, that we do grow up in conservative families, and we do pop up in conservative families, and we do have traditional values, and not all of us are like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're on point with that. You know, you're not going to burn in hell.
No, absolutely not. I knew that from the age of 13 or 14. Like, I was like, you know, there's no way. It just doesn't make any sense.
God loves everyone.
God loves everyone.
No matter what anyone says.
Yeah.
And isn't there one thing that says, like, no one sin is greater than the other?
I'm not sure.
I think there's something like that.
I know there's something about let he be without sin cast the first stone. I think Jesus said that.
No one's without sin.
Right. But the thing that bothers me is, like, you're classifying who somebody innately is as sinful, not their, like,
it's not them wearing wool.
This saying that they blanket themselves with love the sinner, not the sin. And it's like, okay. All right.
That's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Thanks for traveling all this way.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to come back.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back. And, happy birthday, Marines.
Well, thank you.
Happy Veterans Day.
Yeah. I look forward to watching it tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be good.
All right.